also known as the BZA. I'm William Ray. I'm the chairperson, and the board members that will hear your case tonight, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Margent, and we have some more members coming in as well. Mr. Nelson to my left, Mr. Truslow, Mr. Williams, Ms. Switzer Small should be in momentarily, hopefully, with all this traffic that we have on 526. Might take a minute. Staff members present tonight are Ms. Brooks, Clark, Downey, Ms. Jennifer Stiles, and Ms. Jenny Working, excuse me. The attorney who should be also on the way is Mr. Kevin Hugie. Because the hearing tonight is a public fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and South Carolina Code 6-29-70. 15 days prior to the hearing, a notice was printed in the Post and Courier, and a sign was posted on or near the designated property. A notice was mailed to the applicant or the applicant's representative, to the property owners within 300 feet of the property, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and the news media have also been declared and been given information regarding our meeting tonight. The board members, the meeting notes of March 6th and our annual meeting and the March 6th public hearing notes were mailed to you. Are there any changes? And if not, can I please get a motion to approve and a second?
Approve.
Second. All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Raise your right. Aye. So it carries. Thank you. Our case rulings for this and any other BZA meeting are available to the public review and inspection during normal business hours at the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Office. The Board of the Zoning and Appeals is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority. Appeals of a zoning-related administrative decisions. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged there is an error in the order, the requirement, decision, or determination made by any administrative official in the administration or enforcement of a zoning-related regulation. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to overturn the decision of the planning administrator in an appeal. A special exception is issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use in a specified location within the zoning district. Upon demonstrating that such a use complies with all the conditions and standards specified by the Zoning and Land Development Regulation Ordinance, also known as ZELDAR. The BZA must find that a special exception request meet all 6 of the approval criteria in order to grant a special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. A variance. A variance is a relaxation of the regulations of the ordinance where such action may not be contrary to the public interest and where owing to conditions particular to the property, are not a result of the actions or the situations of the applicant. A literal enforcement of this code will result in the unnecessary and undue hardship, and a variance is consistent with section 6-29-800 of the Code of Laws in the state of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find the variance meets all 7 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant the variance. A simple majority is required to grant this variance. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist the board in gathering evidence pertinent to each case. If a member of the BZA feels a need for further information to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It must be understood that the rules of your neighborhood or your subdivisions are binding and that we can take no action to negate their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented written information submitted by the applicant or the applicant's agent for each case. This information is now being considered evidence and is entered into the permanent record of our body. It is assumed to be true, complete, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data assembled by staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the application's effect on surrounding properties. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or to deny a special exception or a variance request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. The BZA decision will be mailed within 10 working days of this public hearing. It will be mailed, certified mail to the applicants and U.S. mail to neighbors and the community interests that are also on the list. If an applicant's request is approved, the applicant should contact the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department staff to discuss the next steps of the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after the meeting. A one-year extension may be granted only if construction or development has been commenced or has been diligently pursued. However, if an applicant's request is disapproved and the applicant wishes to appeal the decision of this board concerning the case, an appeal must be addressed to the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that an appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days of this decision of this board. Failure to file an appeal within a time limit deprives the court of the jurisdiction to hear the matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All information provided to the BZA is considered evidence. And the board will certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made either in writing or orally. Which brings me to the next part. Each person who wishes to speak to this board may be sworn in by the BZA secretary. At this time, in order to expedite this, if you wish to speak to this body, I'd ask at this time if you would stand, raise your right hand, and the secretary will administer the oath.
If it's the case, we have to.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I will say the oath, and you will say, I do. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do. And if you haven't signed in, please make sure you sign in as well. Thank you.
That was just about everybody in the room. That's good. I will now call each case by case number. Staff will present facts that are pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then call the applicant. The applicant will state his or her name for the case, along with the address for the record, before presenting testimony pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I would then ask for those speaking in support or in opposition for each case, and they will follow the same procedure for identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes. The applicant will then have a chance to reply to the opposition, limited to 2 minutes as well. And then the BZA will make a motion to close the case to the public. Finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific facts, findings of facts, and conclusion of law. Tonight, we will hear 8 new business cases. And Ms. Working, if you would, start us off with case BZA-02-23-00650.
The applicant and property owner, Matthew Alt, represented by Ryan Maddie of JMT Inc., is requesting a variance to encroach more than 25% of the protected area of 5 grand trees for a proposed driveway at 4230 River Road which is TMS number 25900000018 on Johns Island in Charleston County. The subject property is located in the Planned Development PD zoning district, PD 177, which is called the Three Rivers for site. Adjacent properties to the north are located in the Rural Agricultural AG8 zoning district. Adjacent properties to the east and west are located in the AGR Agricultural Residential zoning district. And there is one adjacent property to the southeast that is located in the Community Commercial CC zoning district. The 35-acre property currently contains a house, workshop, chicken coop, pavilion, and fire pit. The applicant is currently in the site plan review process for a proposed foster camp. The applicant proposes to build a driveway leading to the rear of the lot for the proposed foster camp, a clubhouse, 2 cabins, 2 storage buildings, and a parking lot. The following is a detailed list of grand trees that will be impacted by the proposed driveway and the percent. I'll also go through those when we go through the slides of the pictures. And this is tree 7 and 18 and the ordinance requirements. A zoomed out aerial, picture of the posting sign. So this is the 40-inch DBH live oak tree number 2, which is they're asking to encourage 38%. That's true. Tree number 4 is a 42-inch DBH grand live oak tree, and they're asking again for 38% for this tree. Tree number 7 is a 27-inch DBH grand live oak tree, and they're asking for 58%. Tree number 16 is a 25-inch DBH grand live oak tree, and they're asking for 31%. And tree 18 is a 28-inch DBH grand live oak tree, and they're asking for 36%. And here's a couple of photos of the property: a pavilion, the fire pit, workshop, house, and the existing driveway. Again, this is the location of 3 of the trees: tree 2, 16, and 4, and then tree 7 and 18. This is the plot. So staff evaluated the trees on October 31st, 2022. We did our BZA site visit on March 14th, 2023. Regarding the approval criteria, we stated that it may meet criteria 1, 4, 6, and 7. It meets criteria 2 and 5, and it may not meet 3. If the board, and the board may consider each tree separately for approval conditions, or denial. In the event the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval for site construction, the applicant shall install tree barricades around all grand trees to be preserved pursuant to section 924 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. 2, the applicant shall retain a certified arborist to monitor and treat all grand trees on site through the duration of construction. The applicant shall provide a copy of the treatment plan to zoning staff for review and approval prior to zoning permit approval. And 3, if any of the 5 trees die within up to 3 years of the completion of construction, the applicant shall mitigate the DBH of each tree by either A, submitting a mitigation plan for review and approval indicating the installation of canopy trees no smaller than 2.5 inches in caliper, equaling inch per inch replacement. B, by depositing funds into the Charleston County Tree Fund as described in section 9.2.6 of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. Or C, a combination of both A and B. The allotted mitigation shall be in place for each tree prior to its removal. Any questions?
Any questions, staff? Mr. Williams?
Question. You know if this property is being utilized right now? Like used right now?
Yes, I believe they live in the main house, and they have a chicken coop. And
They have a chicken coop.
Yeah.
But they wanted to do a camp for children or foster camp?
Yeah.
Is it the same owners that owns the house? And
So,
all?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Marchant?
Ms. Working, you mentioned that staff felt like it may not meet number 3. Can you expound on that in addition to what's written in the record, written on the application?
Yes. So there's approximately 19 acres of highland that exists closer to the front that could be accessible from the existing driveway. However, the applicant would like the driveway to be in the back towards the chapel and where they're going to build up.
So you're saying that the property could be utilized for the camp in the front versus a driveway all the way through it to other amenities? Is that essentially what you're saying? Okay, thank you.
Follow-up question on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
So this is the driveway that they want to put in much different from the current driveway, or?
Well, it continues on. Let me just make sure I have it right. I think it's that one or this one. I think it's this one, right? You see? That shows the addition.
Mm-hmm.
Additional road.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank
Go ahead.
you. What is the material being used for the driveway?
I think it is gravel.
Gravel.
And then I have a question. Ms. Brooks, you went out there? No, who went out?
Oh, Chris. He's with Greenbelts now.
Oh, boy.
I know.
Because I was just trying to find out the general condition of the trees, and one was worse than the other. Anyone? Mr. Marchant?
Ms. Workin, I guess one other question I have is the exhibits it's difficult to tell what other constraints are on the property. So we don't have a full tree survey, is that correct?
I do. Did you get one for site plan review? Okay, there's a full one for site plan review, but not for this case. We just showed.
I mean, I can only, and we can ask this of the applicant, but I can only imagine that other paths were looked at and perhaps there's other trees that pose a problem. But without a full tree survey, it's kind of hard to tell, is this the path of easiest resistance or least resistance in terms of cost, or are we truly trying to avoid the trees? I mean, do you know, or have y'all seen that through the review process?
Mm-hmm. But yes, they did submit one in the site plan review process. So.
We have additional plans for the entire site plan review application. The applicant is trying to navigate existing grand trees as well as a pinch point between some wetlands. So there is opportunity to put the driveway in other locations, but again, there are wetlands on the property. So this is the point they picked that would be of least impact to the wetlands and the trees. Ultimately, the 5 trees that we have on the list were the ones that were just closest to that kind of pinch point, if you will.
So in your opinion, is this the best path to take based on what you know from the rest of the property?
I haven't seen other options.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the best because of that.
And if you got that answer out of Ms. Stiles, she gave you the very best answer she could get without getting into trouble.
Anything else?
And just because of my eyes, maybe I can't read the scale. How long is this additional driveway? Is it?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Maybe the applicant can answer that.
If she would have found an alternative driveway, she'd have pointed it out. That's what I know about her. Anyone else?
Just maybe I'll wait and ask the applicant this. It's about the wetlands that they have to fill in. I'll ask the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Smalls. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you would, please, over here. Please state your name and address. One at a time, gentlemen. One can sit there and wait if you could. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve this application.
Yes, sir. My name is Matthew Walt, address 4230 River Road in Johns Island, zip code 29455. So we're trying to build a camp for foster kids, a respite camp, which gives them a break from the day-to-day challenges of being a foster care. It gives their foster families a break from just the challenges of kids in foster care, face a lot of trauma and a lot of just challenges in handling that. Our intent is to get the kids out in the woods, out in nature, kind of get them away from electronics, away from, just being in neighborhoods, just get them, just the therapeutic aspects of being in the woods and being in nature. So the reason for the driveway where we have it is we did look at other options. It minimized impact to the wetlands and minimized impact to the wooded area. We want to maintain the woods as much as we can to give the kids the ability to be out in the woods and to be out in nature. And so this allows us to minimize the impact to the wetlands while navigating the grand trees. We tried to move around them as best we could, and this was the best we could come up with in that. And that the back of the property is about 7 acres of high ground, where it's a really good spot. It keeps it separate from my house and my family area, but allows us to be there and be a part of it and support it. But kind of gives the camp its own area to be present in the back of the property. Ryan Matty's here. He's the engineer on the project. He can answer more of the technical questions. Any questions on the camp? And
I'll start off with
Yes, sir.
you. How many kids do you intend on caring for at one time? What's your max?
10 kids per camp session, and we'll have 3 counselors per camp session as well.
You getting any governmental support?
We've coordinated with DSS. We're not to the point of getting support yet, but they know what we're trying to do. We've talked to them. We've talked to other foster care agencies as well.
Good. Any other board member? Mr. Jordan?
If you are successful, how much more traffic will be on that road?
Not much. Our intent is to have vans owned by camp that we will go pick the kids up and bring them onto the property because we want to minimize impact. We want to minimize people knowing where the property is for the safety of the kids. We want to minimize traffic on the property because we live there as well, so we don't want a lot of cars coming in and out. So it's not going to be a whole lot of extra traffic. Yes, sir.
I have another question for you as well. So you're going to use gravel for this road?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're going to maintain that road yourself the
Yes, sir.
entire time?
Yep.
And how long is the driveway extension?
1,200 feet?
Would it be possible to park at the end of the current driveway and just walk to?
You could. There's area to park. We want to have, as part of the county requirements, we have to have ADA parking near the facilities in the back. So that's why we have the small parking lot back there. And fire truck access as well.
I can talk more about that.
Okay. Any other? Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Alt, how long have you pursued the respite?
Since 2019, so we've been in this process for about 4 years now.
Wow. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Williams.
Sir, so you're going to build a building? You're going
Yes,
to
sir.
build anything else? Okay. And then do you plan on the trees being impacted, like dying, or are you going to be able to salvage the trees?
No, we've had the arborist come out and do his report, and we plan to have them help us maintain the trees and keep them
So
healthy.
you estimate that you'll be able to keep the trees alive?
Yes,
Impacted?
of course, yes.
Okay.
We want to avoid cutting down as many trees as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Ms. Smalls, you had something you want to
You're
say?
building a brand new building back there?
Yes.
Have you gone through the process for that already?
We're working through the site
Other
plan.
trees may be impacted at a later date?
No, not back there. We've already marked everything that's been submitted to the county for the site plan review process.
Do you have any other questions, Ms. Smalls?
Technical ones for the.
Okay. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Ryan Matty, 235 McGrath Darby Boulevard, Mount Pleasant. I am with JMT. Matt also didn't mention he's fostered several kids and adopted a couple as well. So certainly very vested in this project. So yeah, he brought us on to help with the whole site plan review process. As he mentioned, we tried to go through the whole process of putting the best route together. And really, I think Jennifer mentioned the main issue is that there is a lot of wetlands that basically separate that entire back parcel where they wanted to build the camp. And the only place that we can put the road without significantly impacting more wetlands is on that side of the property where there's an existing road, berm, whatever it used to be, to access the back of the property. And so we had to navigate the road to that direction or to that location while avoiding as much of the trees as we can. And again, one of the main reasons they bought this property is that the oaks on it are just beautiful, especially in the back of the camp where they're going to be putting it. There's some oaks that are going to be scattered out around there, and it really helps. I think, I mean, that's one of the main reasons that I love living in Charleston, on Johns Island specifically, because I live out there as well. And I think we got a really good plan, and again, if we're going to try to avoid more trees, we may end up impacting more wetlands. So this is really the best of both worlds. We think, and based on the arborist recommendations, you can see I think in the package there was, somebody asked a question about the health of the trees. The arborist did grade all the trees. Basically, all of them, they said, with root pruning and care during construction and after, they should be able to be maintained. And that is the full intent. In fact, some of the trees that we're getting the variance for today, I think the two up at the front already have an existing driveway that goes back to the fire camp and the pavilion there that's been used for decades, I'm sure. And those trees are fine. So we did meet with the county arborist as well. So he had his own arborist come out. The county arborist came out, gave us some recommendations for realigning the driveway, kind of shifting it in certain areas to figure out where we could put it. So we worked with them to then revise the alignment. And again, this is really what we came up with to try to do the best we can with preserving what we have out there and putting this camp really in a place where it makes the most sense to do it.
Very good.
Somebody else mentioned, sorry, one other thing. I mean, I'll answer a couple of questions about the driveway. It is going to be gravel. We did work with stormwater department to reduce the amount of compaction and the impacts on it. So it'll be gravel with base fill, less compaction than you might normally have. And then to your point over here, as far as the access, it has to be there. For the fire marshal needed access to that back parcel. And that's kind of where we got at this point. So any other questions? I'm happy to help.
Does anyone have any questions?
And listed in your application, it's mentioned that you need to fill wetlands. Can you just tell this body, is it an acre of wetlands, less than an acre? Do you know how many wetlands?
Yes, ma'am. I believe it was less than 1/10 of an acre. We do have the permit for that. So we were ready to go as soon as we have the approval from county.
Good. Anyone else?
No, it's a quick question.
Okay, Mr. Nelson.
In getting the wetland permit, did you have to look at other alternatives for placement of the road?
Yes, sir, we did. And again, this was the best alternative and the least amount of impacts to the wetlands. So.
Okay. Any other board members have any questions? Thank you so very much for your testimony today. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have, thank you, anyone here in this room that would like to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition to this application? Yes, sir. If you please would come up, state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should deny this application, sir.
My name is Burgess Haywood. Live 3345 Jessica Wells Drive. And we have, my question is, from where you're showing me his houses and what he's trying to do or what he's doing, we'd like to know from behind his house coming into the wood, what property is he's going over? Whose property he's going over? Because we have, I think it's something like 89 acres in that wood. From the other side, from Bohick Road side. And we want to know if this road from River Road is going to connect with this road that you have in now. That's my question.
Okay, so your question is regarding the road and access to the road and where the road is located?
Right. Is it coming over?
So you have adjoining property?
Right. From Bohick side. Bohick Road side.
Can someone pull that up? Can you pull that up? And make sure we get a clear picture.
Okay.
There you go. So you see in blue, that's the said property. So where might your property be, sir?
Coming from here down. So we want to know how far this road is going to be extended. Because if it's going to be extended all the way to where you have the churches property, then that's coming over the Qualls property.
Okay, so where's the church property?
Church property is 33.
33?
Right.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman, I think if you go to the site plan exhibit, it'll clarify that question.
Ms. Working, if you don't
Which
mind.
is about 5/8 of the way through the property, I think. Keep going, Ms. Bergen.
Can you go a little further?
The overall site plan? Yeah, keep going.
I think the applicant will get a chance to rebut,
Yeah.
but the entirety of the road is located on.
Right there.
That's a fact.
Yeah,
There you go.
the entirety of the road is located on his property. It doesn't appear to cross over any other properties.
You heard what he said?
Yeah.
So
I
the
understand.
road is going to stay on the applicant's property.
Right. But you send me this notice.
That goes to
file.
everybody who's in close proximity to where the work is being done. So if you were within 300 feet, if you have some interest in it, you would have received that notice from the staff.
Now I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Thomas Qualls, and I live 3810 Shadow Pond Road. I think if you could go back to where you, no, where the black thing on his, the road on his.
Part
Yes.
right there.
Yes, okay. I live,
Can't reach that high. I understand you up there.
I live up there, okay? And of course, this whole road, in order to get from the main road to where I live, I've got to take Shadow Pond Road. We live in the woods, just like they don't want to be in the woods, we are. My only question is, during the rainy season, how are you going to, is that going to affect Shadow Pond Road and where I live? Because when it rains, it's difficult. Over to your side, there's a lot of water. And I want to know, how are you going to keep that water from coming over to us?
Okay. Do we have any staff member who can answer that? If not, hold on just for a moment, sir, if you don't mind. Let's see if we can get an answer from staff on that. Pretty much, what they're doing, sir, they're finishing out a road in gravel. So they're not really pushing any water at all onto any other property. All the water should be retained on that property.
Theoretically, yes, sir.
Yeah,
However,
well, theoretically, yes, sir. But technically, they're not allowed to have any water to be pushed onto any other property. Otherwise, the staff would have made note of that and made them do corrections. But Ms. Stiles will get up there and address that question to you on a technical aspect.
Well, I won't get into the technical aspect. That's Public Works stormwater, but they are going through stormwater review at the same time as this process for the site plan. So we will not do any final approvals until Public Works signs off.
thank you.
That answers your question?
Thank you, yes.
Thank you for your question, sir. Thank you, Ms. Stiles. Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Okay, sir, you have the right of rebuttal if you so wish.
I'll just, as Jennifer said,
I hate to say it, but you got to go through the whole process. State your name and address again.
Ryan Matty, 235 McGrath Darby, Mount Pleasant, with JMT. Just wanted to clarify what she was saying as far as stormwater. There are stormwater measures that we have in place that we've been working through, including the gravel, which will be able to store some of the water in it. So we should be able to handle that concern as far as a runoff. And I spoke to stormwater this morning or this afternoon, and we are just about there with approval. So really, we're following under the regulations of the county. We really shouldn't have an issue with that. So just wanted to.
Any other staff members? Not staff members. Board members have a question? Mr. Williams?
How you doing, sir? How do you address the question about possibly water runoff to neighboring properties?
Yeah, as part of the stormwater review process, they do have requirements in place to make sure that they look at impacts as a result of your development. So one of the things that we're doing is kind of a, I'll call it a bioretention facility that sort of captures some of that runoff from the new park area that will hold it back from getting into the wetlands, and from it essentially is a net zero increase type thing. We're also proposing when other parts of as part of the plan that the final plan would be seeding and some meadow areas to help with some of the runoff as other parts of the property. So again, it's all part of the stormwater review process, and they're checking all those to make sure that we've met them. So we have complied with them, and again, that was one of the things, a stone in the driveway, and then also the little rain garden bioretention facility is the other measure that we're putting in place to help with that.
Thank you, sir. Okay. At this time, I'll close it to the public. And at this time, board members, do we have any questions of staff? If not, I'll need a motion to approve or deny this particular case.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve
All
this
right.
variance request.
All right.
And looking at the conditions, there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to this piece of property, that the route chosen for the driveway is the best route, and for this property to get back to the area where this camp will be constructed. The conditions do not generally apply to other properties because it's unique to this property and the grand trees that we're talking about being impacted. That effectively, so it meets that condition. Condition number 3, that the denial of this would effectively prohibit the planned camp that is being wants to be constructed, and would unreasonably prevent utilization of the property. I think it's clear the reason to have the camp separate from the main house of the owner. It seems very reasonable, since it will be used as apart from the applicant's normal activity. The number 4, that it will not be a detriment to the adjacent property. We talked about water runoff, but that's a separate review process, will have to be passed. This road in itself is a permeable surface and will allow water to pass through, so it meets that condition. Number 5, that does not grant a variance, which in fact would establish use not other permitted in the zoning district, and this is a use permitted in the zoning district, so it meets that criteria. And the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. So finally, that does not substantially conflict with a comprehensive plan, and it meets that criteria.
Can you speak on the conditions, the 3 conditions as well, please?
Oh, the conditions, yes.
Yeah. You don't have to read all of them, just.
Okay.
As recommended by staff.
All right. That meets the 3 conditions that have been set forth for the approval of this variance.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. All right, Ms. Smalls. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye, raising your right hand. Aye. And it's unanimous. Thank you, board. So, your application has been approved. I never had to look behind me to do this. But your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you'll get information from staff, letting you know the next steps in the process. Gentlemen, once again, congratulations and good night.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, I can go to the next one. Here we go. The next case we have is case BZA. That's 02-23-00651. That will be done by the one and only Mr. Joshua Downey. Am I right?
I think so.
Okay.
Trying to get set up here. Bear with me a second. All right, so. BZA case 02-23-00651. The applicant and property owner Daniel Nichols of Catala Investment LLC is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the Mount Pleasant Overlay Suburban Residential Zoning District at 1132 Carter Avenue, TMS number 55914000019 in the east area of Charleston County. The subject property and all the surrounding properties are located in the Mount Pleasant Overlay Suburban Residential Zoning District, with the exception of the property to the south that is located in the town of Mount Pleasant's jurisdiction. The property contains a single-family residence with 2 bedrooms that was constructed in 1956 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent out 2 bedrooms in the single-family residence, and they said they will provide 4 parking spaces. The applicant's letter of intent explains, I am proposing to make my house an extended short-term rental. It is a small bungalow that I would update to bring to the appearance of neighbors. It is 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. That is the definition of short-term rental. That is the overlay map for the Mount Pleasant Overlay Zoning District. That is the subject property. That is an aerial view of the subject property, a zoomed in aerial view, and a zoomed out aerial view. Staff conducted a site visit on March 9th, 2023. That is the single family residence with the proposed parking. These are some of the adjacent properties. That is Carter Avenue. Staff believes that all 3 of the criteria for this application may have been met. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 02-23-00615, a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the Mount Pleasant Overlay Suburban Residential Zoning District at 1132 Carter Avenue, TMS number 55914000019 in the east area of Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's recommendations, including but not limited to restricting the number of days that the short-term rental may be rented. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to the zoning permit's approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental property limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County Noise Ordinance. That is the site plan that was submitted to county staff. That is the plat that was recorded. Are there any questions?
Any questions of staff? Thank you, sir. Is the applicant present? If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
and tell us why we should approve this application.
Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Michaels, and I reside at 5323 Waterview Drive in North Charleston. I would like this application approved. There was a letter in opposition, and I would like to address their concerns as well. They mentioned that there are 4 hotels in the area that surround these short-term rentals. And I say these because I also have the next case that you'll hear. But short-term rentals, they provide something that hotels don't provide. A lot of guests in short-term rentals like to nowadays travel with their pets. You can't do that in a hotel. Short-term rentals provide a place that people can travel comfortably with their animals. They also provide a way for budget-friendly options so you don't have to eat out all the time, because there are full kitchens, a dining area where families can come and spend time together and not have to worry about eating out all the time. So short-term rentals do provide a significant difference than hotels, as the lady or man in opposition wrote in their letter. In the last meeting, the statistic was discussed that there's only 200 short-term rentals in Charleston County. That's not very many to give options to people that would like to travel, like I said, with their pets, and also don't like to eat out all the time. I employ a management company that thoroughly vets all of my guests. They have to be verified government-issued IDs. They have to sign an agreement to comply with all noise ordinances. Quiet time is at 10 p.m. I've never had a problem ever with any of that as well. And there is an age restriction to try to minimize kind of like a party house. But as he mentioned, there's only 2 bedrooms, so it doesn't allow for a lot of people to be in the residence. So we are my property management, and I also am there all the time. I do all of my yard maintenance. I cut the grass. So I'm there trying to upkeep the property as much as I can, as well as always just trying to make the houses comfortable. And I also have all the numbers to all my neighbors in case there is an issue in that off chance, but they will notify me immediately. So that for those reasons, I hope you guys approve my short-term rental application.
Okay, hold on one moment, if you don't mind, please. Do we have any board member that might, Mr. Jordan?
Obviously, from what I can tell, one of your selling points is animals.
Yes.
So do you have any plan to do any type of buffering with loud dog barking all hours of the night or whenever?
So a lot of the rentals, I do have an Airbnb in Florida. That's where I actually started. A lot of them are mainly small dogs, and they're inside with the owners. And they're kept, and when people travel with their pets, they're usually not traveling with big dogs. I have 5 big dogs of my own, and it would be really hard for me to travel with them, my big shepherds. So they're usually inside. And so I would say, and we also have, like I said, I have all my communication with my neighbors. To put a device, there's devices that I can put in the house that we have talked about putting in, but I'm not quite sure about mitigating the outside noise. But I'm sure my neighbors, as you'll hear from one, would definitely call me and tell me if that is an issue.
But of course, dogs do go outside.
Oh, of course. Yes, go out, go potty, go play.
Mine, when I let them out, bark every time.
It is only for a short time.
So that's why I'm saying, I'm not trying to throw you off or anything, but dogs bark.
Of course.
All size dogs.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Is the back door?
Wait, I'm sorry, I want to recognize Mr. Marchant first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. I guess your agency rents out the properties, right? So you're not using an Airbnb or a VRBO. Is that correct?
So I'm the owner of the houses.
Right.
I employ a management company to do all of the computer stuff, like the computer application on Airbnb. They vet all of the guests. They have them sign all of the agreements. They have all the rules and regulations in place that we have discussed. And I am the person that is on site. If there's a problem, I go there. If there's an issue, maintenance issue, yards, upkeep, everything like that, that is where as the owner that I come in, because I have people on the ground here.
So you're going through Airbnb.
Yes.
They have to, your guests have to go through that process as well. And
Exactly.
They get rated and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Smalls?
Oh, I was just asking, is the backyard fenced?
Yes, they both are.
Yes, sir.
I'm the new member on the board, so I hope my question's appropriate. But first, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
As I understand it, this is a donut, what I call a donut hole within Mount Pleasant?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
I'm curious, in the past, I've lived in a donut hole. What arrangement is made for fire, for police, trash pickup? Do they come, is it done through Mount Pleasant? Is it done separately? Do they come different days? When I lived in a donut hole, the police were always doing,
Yes, and my neighbor, he's chomping at the bit over here. So we pay taxes to the fire department, is on the Mount Pleasant side, I believe, and they also come and they take care of the overlay as well.
Thank you.
Any other board member have a question? Thank you. So,
I have one, I have a
follow-up?
a couple of, do you know what the density is? What the, I live on Isle of Palms, density is about 10 times the national average, including New York City and Chicago and on. And in the summer, we're about 50 times the national density. Do you know what the density is? I'm talking in terms of stress on the community as a whole and your neighbors?
In that specific neighborhood, I don't.
Within a mile.
I have no idea. I'm sorry, I don't know that statistic.
Do you have any feel for how it compares to, say, the surrounding?
So it's not as much as IOP, and it wouldn't be as much as Sullivan's or Folly Beach even. Mount Pleasant there's not, even in the town of Mount Pleasant, they have such restrictions on their short-term rentals that the people coming into that area are significantly less than, say, your beach town or any area like that. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Sorry.
anyone else? Thank you so very much for your testimony today. Do we have anyone else to speak in support of this application? Yes, sir. You're biting at the bit. There you go.
My name is Stephen Morris, and I live at 1134 Carter, Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Please tell us why we should.
Well, first I'd love to state that I'm a 40-year plus resident directly across the street from one of the houses and next door to the other ones. And as Miss Danielle has took on these houses in her project, they now have a fresh new look, and the grounds have been upgraded, which hasn't been in the past. And now they both are a big plus to our neighborhood and pleasing to the eye, which we are very proud of and thankful for. And the tenants have always been friendly, responsible, and caring, and pleasing to talk to. I love to talk sometimes and meet new people and to fellowship with. And let me add to that to say that they have been exceedingly quiet and most respectful. And as the dog question was, we don't have a dog problem, and we don't have any barking. You know, if they bark, they might bark inside. And so therefore, I am in complete favor of this request of Ms. Daniels to be granted. And one other item I'd love to speak to, the police and the trash pickup and all that is in place. And I'm she's in contact with the other neighbors, and but I'm sort of her contact person because I'm home most of the time. And so I like to help my neighbors and my fellow man when I can. And I thank the council for hearing what I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Do we have any other questions for him? Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak in favor? Thank you, sir. Anyone else to speak in favor of this case, this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This case is closed to the public. Board members, do you have any questions of staff? If not, I could use a motion to approve or deny this particular case. Ms. Smalls, thank you.
I make a motion that we approve in the matter of BZA case. Let me use this gadget, huh? In the matter of BZA case 0223000652, I find that the application is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community. Number two, adequate provision is made and or exists for such items such as setbacks, buffering, including fences and or landscaping to protect adjacent properties from possible adverse influence of the proposed STPR use, such as noise, traffic congestion, trash parking, and similar factors. And number three, the application complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable STPR site plan review requirements of the ordinance. In addition to meeting those requirements, we also are attaching the staff recommendations, and there are two of them here that are listed.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Smalls. Do we have a second?
Would you amend that to be 651 instead of 652? And I'd be happy to amend, or to second it.
You just misspoke when you said
Talking about
that.
the address, right?
Oh.
The case number.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. BZA case 0223000652.
One.
Oh, one. Okay, sorry.
So we have a motion
I'm looking at the wrong thing.
that's been made and seconded. All right. Any discussion?
Is this her second?
All right.
652? Okay, that's right.
One of the things that
Wait.
concerned me when I got married, there were 6,200 people that lived in Mount Pleasant, and they were bumping up against 100,000. They have 400 short-term rentals, but this is within the county's purview.
Yes, sir.
Not Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant hasn't weighed in at all. Is that correct? I don't think they've weighed in.
And they're notified of all these applications.
I'm sorry?
They're notified of all the applications.
They were notified, yet they have not complained.
Correct.
Is that right?
Good question. Good
Palm
observation.
Beach is
Thank
the
you.
only area
Chairman,
that's restricting.
and I appreciate your question about the density. I can't really comment on the density, but I think one of the things that might favor this application is that the area is very mixed use around it. And it's right off of a pretty major artery, vehicular artery. And so you've got a lot of retail and shopping and hotels, and it's not very heavy residential, single family. So it sort of fits within the spirit of the use. I can't comment on density, but of the use. So I think that's a fair thing.
I understand. I thought it was significant that Mount Pleasant
I agree with you.
had not weighed in, given the fact that they limited short-term rentals to 400.
Yeah.
Had they weighed in, I might have a different view.
Any more questions, comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. You've been approved. Congratulations. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff, letting you know the next steps for this application. You will be hanging around for a few more minutes, so hold tight.
652 is also her case.
Absolutely. So our next case
Mr. Dowling is still right up there waiting to come back. Our next case is case 00652.
Vindication for you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a procedural question. Perhaps
Can
for
we
Mr.
done that one as
Hughie,
well?
but
Go ahead.
In a back-to-back situation like this where we have the same, can you dispense from the presentation of the case and go through the motion process, or do we have to go through this?
They're two different properties.
Yeah, they're two different
They're
properties.
across the street from each other.
Okay.
Could it be a case where
Not that
could it be a case where you hear them at the same time by the same person?
No, you could have presented the facts for both cases at the same time, but because we didn't do that, you need to go through the whole litany again.
Thank you.
Good point, sir.
Thank you.
Trying to move us along.
So the applicant property owner Danielle Michaels of Catella Investment LLC is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental extended home rental in the Mount Pleasant Overlay Suburban Residential Zoning District at 1137 Carter Avenue, TMS number 559-1400025 in the East area of Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located in the Mount Pleasant Suburban Residential Zoning District, with the exception of the property to the north that is located in the town of Mount Pleasant's jurisdiction. The property contains a single-family residence with 2 bedrooms that was constructed in 1955 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent out 2 bedrooms in the single-family residence and provide 4 parking spaces. The applicant's letter of intent states, I am proposing to the BZA to approve my extended short-term rental in the house in the up-and-coming neighborhood and a perfect addition to the neighborhood. So that is the definition of short-term rentals. Again, the map of the overlay, the subject property, a zoomed in aerial view of the subject property, a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property, and staff conducted a site visit on March the 9th. That is the single family residence with the parking. Adjacent properties, Carter Avenue. Staff does believe that all 3 of the criteria for this condition may have been met. Before I read the conditions, this property was initially brought into us by the Code Enforcement Department, that there was a use that the RV that is on the property was being used as livable space. I did do a site visit again on this past Thursday. It has livable capabilities, but no one is living in it currently. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 02-23-00652, a special exception to establish a short-term rental extended home rental in the Mount Pleasant Overlay Zoning District, Suburban Residential Zoning District at 1137 Carter Avenue, TMS number 559-1400025 in the East area of Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's recommendations, conditions below, including but not limited to restricting the number of days the short-term rental may be rented. In the event that the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Number 1, prior to the zoning permit's approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. The property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County Noise Ordinance. And 5, the recreational vehicle RV that is on the property shall not be used for short-term rental, livable sleeping, or housekeeping purposes pursuant to Charleston County Zoning and Land Regulations Ordinance Chapter 6.5.13, accessory structures of major recreational equipment. Also to that, the history on this property was also at one time for sale. After the applicant's original intent was to sell the property afterwards, after the approval of this application, and somewhere in their description, they did at one time have that the RV would be conveyed with the property, the sale of the property. So that may be something that you would talk to the applicant about. But again, that the RV, we want to make sure is not to be used for any livable capabilities for short-term rental or livable capabilities at all. So that was the site plan that was submitted along with the plat. Any questions of staff?
Mr. Martin, I can see the wheels in your brain just a turning.
No, I'm good. I am curious about
Current
So,
applicant.
I know where you're going.
I'm
I know where you're
curious
going.
about what it
Current
takes for an
applicant
RV
has
to be
an RV
considered a
on the
livable
property.
space.
So,
Personally.
what is considered livable space, according to the definition of the planning director, and the permitting staff, it has to have 2 of 3 sleeping, cooking, and I believe
Bathroom.
bathing capabilities.
Correct.
When I did the inspection, when I did the site visit, excuse me, there was running water hooked up to the RV at the time. The RV also was hooked up to electricity, which would then provide the cooking capabilities potentially, the bathing capabilities potentially, and it also did have sleeping quarters. So that would be all 3 of the criteria for livable uses.
But you just have to apply for that separately?
So the recreational vehicles are only allowed on residential properties for storage. The only way that there could be a livable RV situation would be if it was in an RV park. And Ms. Stiles may be able to say if there's any other uses in the county, but from my understanding, they can only be allowed in RV parks.
I don't think it's relevant to the overall discussion, so we don't have to get to the details.
Anyone else on this board? Thank you, sir. Would you please, again, state your name and address?
Hi,
For the
my
record.
name is Danielle Michaels, and I reside at 5323 Waterview Drive in North Charleston. I'm going to address the RV issue. Seems to be the elephant in the room. So the RV, I was notified by the county. I did not know that. I did not know it couldn't be livable. It is hooked up to water and sewer and electricity. And we do maintain it at that property because I have nowhere else to store it. That property is about a half an acre. And when I bought the property, there was already a slab back there. So it kind of fit. So, hey, let me store my RV there. And the reason why it's hooked up to sewer and water is so it's maintainable. Without the electricity there in the hot summers, the AC can't run, mold, mildew, everything. Same with water. The sewer tanks, the storage tanks underneath get corroded and they start to smell. So that's why sewer, water, and electricity are hooked up. Nobody lives there. Nobody stays there. We do use it when we travel, when my family travels, but it is to be stored there. But again, that's why it's hooked up to sewer water. It's mainly so whenever I don't go there in 2 or 3 months, or like if it sits for 2 or 3 months, I don't have these world of problems that you would get if anything would sit for 2 or 3 months without AC or anything like that. I am at the property more than once in 2 or 3 months. But as for the STR, my same arguments. My guests are vetted. They are, we carefully go through the process to allowing who we allow in the property to rent. And it is also a small house. There's only 2 bedrooms in that house. It is completely fenced off. They actually don't have, any of my guests do not have access to the RV area. It is completely fenced and separate and apart from that. So there's no issue there. And that's, I think it. Oh, I also wanted to, sorry, your point on the last thing, it brought up a good point, kind of goes to yours. The area is, just to kind of tell you where the area is, if you go down 526 and there's the Walmart and Total Wine right there, my house sits directly behind that Walmart. So like he said, it is very mixed use. I even know a couple places or a couple properties in that neighborhood are mixed-use properties. Like the one directly behind him is a mixed-use property. When you pull into the small neighborhood, there's a condominium building, and then if you drive down the road, there are a bunch of businesses as well there. So it's not just a strictly residential area. It does have a lot of retail and industrial uses. Thank you.
One moment, please. So my question is, what is the intent other than storage for the RV?
There is no other intent.
Okay, so is it a requirement for you to have all three, the power, water, and the sewage hooked up to it to maintain it?
It's mainly just for convenience to maintain it.
Because otherwise it looks like it's being utilized
Right.
to live in.
I mean,
So
I
that
could
could-
unplug it, or I could disconnect the water. Yeah, absolutely. It's just there, and then whenever we need the water, we just turn. It's like a hose faucet, so we just turn it on. And then the same thing with the outlet.
But you
it's just-
see what we're looking at,
Yeah, of
it
course.
would give the appearance as if someone would live in it.
I mean,
you
I
know.
could even, if it was a requirement, I could move it off the property. I don't know.
I
where my store, but I can
understand.
do it.
I understand the benefit of having property big
Yeah.
enough where you can put recreational vehicles and things of that magnitude on there, but just to have it such that it could be utilized at any time may give the board some meaning that possibly.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for interrupting you, but the applicant is requesting a permit for the
Use of the
dwelling-
house.
The dwelling unit.
Exactly.
The use of the RV is not before the board, and you can limit the permit just to the dwelling unit. But I do not believe that the board has the authority to have her disconnect her RV.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a friendly question to start with, and then one was more probing. I think you're prepared to commit that under no circumstances will any short-term tenant be allowed to use the RV, is that correct?
Absolutely.
And then the more probing question, I'm trying to get my mind around the RV is on the same, got separate meter, or does
No,
it
it's on the same
operate
meter.
off the house?
It's on the same meter. Everything is connected.
Just to the board, to the recommendation of our attorney, maybe if it's approved, that we add a condition that we limit rental to a dwelling unit to avoid the appearance of maybe the use of the RV and dwelling.
Well, that's what he was stating, is that it's not in there. We can't consider it. That's why we have his brilliance here today.
But you said we
could not.
we can add a condition
you can
to
add a
limit
Right.
the
The
permit,
permit does
the
not
approval
apply.
to the permit of just the dwelling unit.
Right, and not the RV or
And
any
not the
other
RV.
structure.
So that's what I was saying there.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of tiptoeing around too.
Would that not be redundant to the law that already exists?
It does.
Yeah, It's language, if you're comfortable with it.
I got you.
I think it is redundant, but the board seems to be focused on that. so.
Yeah.
That elephant, I tell you in the room.
I had no questions about the RV.
Yeah, but those wheels are turning.
Isn't that mentioned in the criteria in the staff recommendations?
That was,
That's in there, right?
Yes, number 4.
Okay, number 4. Okay. So
We
that's
added
mentioned.
it to the PowerPoint.
Okay.
any other questions for the applicant while we have her up here? Thank you so very much. Do we have anyone to speak in support? Anyone else to speak in support of this application? Anyone else to speak in opposition? Did you want to speak in support again, sir?
Yes, sir.
I may have gone a little quicker than normal.
Again, my name is Stephen Morris. I live at 1134 Carter. And my same remarks I said before applies to this same property. And we thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. This case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any other questions of staff? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to either approve or deny this application.
Move to approve.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Williams, please.
I move to approve this application. Looking at criteria 1, it's compatible with existing uses in the vicinity. It will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community. As we have a resident that's in favor of this, so it looks like it won't affect the general welfare. Criteria 2, adequate provision is made and or exists for such items as setbacks, buffering, to protect adjacent properties from the possible adverse influence of the proposed STRP use, such as noise, traffic congestion, trash parking, and similar factors. The applicant's letter states that there is a privacy fence on 2 sides, so it meets that criteria. Criteria 3, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use, conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable STRP site plan review requirements of this ordinance. The applicant is currently in the STRP limited site plan review process, as mentioned. So it meets criteria 3, and I move that we accept the staff recommendations for this application, all the recommendations.
The recommendations on your tablets do not include the limitation that I saw.
To include the limitation on the RV mentioned by staff, to not use it as a short-term rental.
We need to read that into the record.
Restricted
I would
to
read it, yeah,
to-
since it's not included in there.
So if you would, Mr. Williams, if you would read all 4 conditions, excuse me, and add that 5th in there.
So I'll move to accept the staff's conditions. Condition number 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the STRP limited site plan review process. Number 2, the use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. This property shall not be used as a short-term rental for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year. Recommendation 3. Recommendation number 4, the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. Recommendation number 5, the recreational vehicle RV that is on the property shall not be used for short-term rental, living, sleeping, or housekeeping purposes pursuant to the Charleston County zoning and land development regulations. 65.13, accessory storage of major recreational equipment. Accessory storage of major recreational equipment.
All right, so we have a motion that's been submitted. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? We have one that opposed. It carries. Congratulations. So both of your applications have been approved. Within 10 days, you'll get information from staff letting you know the next step. Congratulations. And you're also free to go. Good night, if you wish.
Thank you.
Very good. Our next case tonight is case BZA 02-23-00653. And since Mr. Joshua Downing is still there, I think he's doing that one as well.
I'll be here a little bit tonight, Mr. Ray.
We always like having you there.
So this is BZA case 02-23-00653. The applicant property owner, Virginia Haynes, is requesting a variance to reduce the required 15-foot interior side setback.
Excuse me, Mr. Downing,
I was gonna say, which one are
the
you
wrong
on?
case is on the board.
I'm on the wrong
No,
page.
you're on the right case. You're reading wrong.
5-4. Case 5-4.
You're on the right case. It's supposed to be regional.
So we're going to skip ahead to case 54.
Yes.
Okay.
Did I say 53? I did. I apologize.
Oh, 53 got kicked
Well,
out.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
We try to rearrange it for.
To Mr. Marchant's point about rearranging and keeping all of the same type cases together. So we're going to do case 54 and 55 and then go back to case 53.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
And normally it will be better in, actually in order because that drives me crazy.
Yes, but except my dumb idea.
So we're doing 00654.
654, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Now we all on speed.
I was looking at sheds.
Yeah. All right, let me get myself together. Now, So the applicant and property owner, Rachel Crisp of 4C's Properties LLC, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 759 West Westchester Drive, TMS number 31003000046 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County. The property to the south, southeast, southwest, and west are located in the low-density R4 residential zoning district. The property to the north, northwest, and northeast and east are located in the city of Charleston's jurisdiction. The property contains a single-family residence with 3 bedrooms that was constructed in 1960 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent out 3 bedrooms in the single-family residence. They have provided 6 parking spaces. The applicant's letter of intent explains requesting a short-term rental permit for the propose of renting 759 West Westchester as on a short-term rental basis. Again, the definition of short-term rentals. That is the subject property, aerial view of the subject property, zoomed in aerial, and a zoomed out aerial. Staff conducted a site visit on March 13th. That is the single family residence. Some of the adjacent properties and West Westchester. So staff believes that all 3 of the criteria may have been met for this case. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 02-23-00654 special exception request to establish a short-term rental extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 759 West Westchester, TMS number 310300046 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding on fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's recommendations below, including but not limited to restricting the number of days that a short-term rental may be rented. In the event that the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to the zoning permit's approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental property site plan review, limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and that the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. That is the site plan that was submitted. And the plat. Any questions?
I don't think so, sir. Any questions? Thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Is the applicant present? Very good. Please come forward. Please tell us why we should approve your application, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kevin Crisp. Reside at 2069 Kimberlin Street on Johns Island. I don't think I can do quite as good of a job as Danielle explaining why it should be approved, but I'll do my best. Short-term rentals do, as she said, provide a different feeling for people coming in. We would like to be able to extend this property into the short-term rental so that the professionals that we mainly have stay here are able to also stay for a shorter duration if needed. Most of our guests are loved by the neighborhood. We have a privacy fence around the entire backyard of the property. Everybody that we've had so far has had dogs. We've never had a complaint. When we first got the property, the neighborhood did need a little bit of work, and especially this house needed a lot of work. Nobody had lived there in a year, and now I'm mowing the grass every week or every other week. I'm the handyman. I'm the lawn care guy. There's already some rentals in the neighborhood, and currently we are actually looking at purchasing other houses in the neighborhood to fix up and rent out as well.
Okay, very good. Hold tight. Do we have anyone that has a question? Oh, I want to start with a little bit of age first. You don't mind, Mr. Marshall, do you?
My question is with regard to the parking. You said you have parking for 6 cars.
Yes, sir.
And that's end to end in the driveway. Is that how the parking is provided?
That's how we have it drawn out. Yes, sir. There's
On a practical basis, though, it doesn't really provide in and out access for that many cars, right? Unless
So,
people
Mr.
leave.
Sutton, if I could interrupt you, the ordinance doesn't say that it has to be 6 cars with maneuverable space. They can be stacked nose to tail.
I see. Okay.
And so the site plan that is on the screen does show that the 6 parking spaces are stacked nose to tail. And it is accessible it has to be accessible by the driveway, meaning that they have to be able to get on the driveway. And then they can maneuver the cars throughout the property however they see fit, but it can be stacked nose to tail.
Okay. So thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
Did you have a follow-up question as well, sir?
No, I didn't. I just think that potentially people would park on the street if that many, on a practical basis, that if you have 3 bedrooms, that's assuming you have 6 people staying there with 6 different cars, right? Which is probably not likely.
Probably not, yes,
Probably
sir.
an unusual situation, but in that case, there would be parking on the street.
Yes, sir.
More than likely, right? Okay.
Mr. Marchant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to get my bearings straight. Do you back up to General Engineering Laboratories? Is that the business that's behind your house?
It's
or to the side?
It's on the side,
Okay.
and then there's a few more houses.
That's the part of Savage Road. I'm just trying
Yes,
to
sir.
figure out where you
Yes,
are.
sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Williams?
How you doing, sir? My question is, how many homes do you rent out, and have you had any other problems? What was that?
Just this one currently. This is our first.
That's your first Airbnb?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I was curious. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you so very much for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. The case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff?
I'll make a motion.
Please, sir.
In case BZA-02-23-00654, I move to approve based on I find that it meets all 3 criteria. Criteria 1 is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity and will not adversely affect the general welfare and character of the immediate community. This home is located in again, like our last case, in a pretty mixed use area, and I think the use is appropriate and certainly corresponds with residential and businesses in the area. Criterion number 2, the homeowner has made, or the owner has made adequate provisions for setbacks, buffering, parking, trash, etc. And so I believe it meets that criterion. Criterion number 3, it complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable STRP site plan review requirements of this ordinance. In addition to the 3 criteria, I move that we include the conditions recommended by staff, the 4 conditions as presented and recommended by staff. Here ends my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Do we have a second? Mr. Nelson with the second. Thank you, sir. Discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
All right. It is unanimous. Congratulations, sir. Within 10 days, members of this wonderful staff will give you information and let you know the next steps in the process. Congratulations and good night, sir. Mr. Downing, we're going to 655.
You sure? Okay.
Seems like a great idea.
Yes, yeah, we're just gonna follow the slide. 655. Had a message, Mr. Rick. All right. The applicant and property owner BZA case 0223000655. The applicant, property owner Abigail E. McClan, is requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2064 Medway Road, TMS number 34303000100 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located in the R4 zoning district. The low-density R4 zoning district. The property contains a single-family residence with 3 bedrooms that was constructed in 1937 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent 2 bedrooms in the single-family residence. They have provided 4 parking spaces. The applicant's letter of intent says, I am applying for a special exception application for short-term rental / extended home rental. Again, the definition of short-term rental, and that is the subject property. A zoomed-in aerial view of the subject property, and the zoomed-out aerial view of the subject property. Staff conducted a site visit on March 14th, excuse me. So that is the subject property. Some of the adjacent properties and Medway Road. So staff does believe that all 3 of the criteria may have been met for this application. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 0223000655, a special exception to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2064 Medway Road, TMS number 34303000100 on James Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's recommendations, conditions below, including but not limited to restricting the number of days that the short-term rental property may be rented. In the event that the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to the zoning permit's approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental property limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County Noise Ordinance. That is the site plan that was submitted and the plat. Any questions?
Any questions of staff? Once again, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is the applicant present?
No.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Creech. I'm at 2163 Parkway Drive and Riverland Terrace in Charleston, South Carolina, 29412. I was asked to come and represent Abigail due to unforeseen circumstances, and she also sent a letter with me that was written by one of our neighbors for the property.
Okay, so please tell us why we should approve this application.
Well, do you want me to read his letter, or do you want me to tell you?
Is the letter already in the record?
It is, I believe. I mean, it should be.
Then I would say state your case.
Yeah.
I'm a neighbor of Abigail. She's done amazing work to this house. She vets out all of her renters. Most of them in our neighborhood have been elderly people who are wanting a vacation away somewhere warm. And I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of her renters because I have a dog that I love and go to the dog park that is across the street. So I see them quite frequently. And then if she's ever having to be out of town, I help out with trash and, anything else that needs to be done. But she's been an excellent neighbor, wonderful. And a lot of her renters have been family members of others in our neighborhood. So it's been nice to have the family aspect of them being able to come and visit their newborn grandchildren and stay in the home.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Board members, do we have any questions?
I did have a question. So you said, does she live in that house?
She lives on the property.
She lives on the property. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
She has a second home on the property
On the
she lives in.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, just to
Yep.
confirm, is the letter of support from Brian Champlin?
It is,
Okay.
We have it, yeah.
yes.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Nelson, for that point of clarity. Thank you so very much.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
This is less about this property and more about your neighborhood, because
yes.
we get quite a few cases for Riverland Terrace, and y'all have a mixed bag of opinions.
Yes, we do.
And do you have a neighborhood association? Do you know?
There is a neighborhood association.
And do y'all meet regularly, and do you discuss these items?
They do.
Okay.
I do not. I've lived in the neighborhood for 8 years. I'm not a property owner. And so I don't go to the meetings as much.
Yeah.
I was fighting stage 4 cancer and been through chemo and a lot of stuff. So I haven't been doing a lot of that in the last couple of years.
Hope you're doing okay.
I'm doing much better. Thank you.
The reason I ask is I think it would be wonderful if sometimes that neighborhood feels certain ways to have a representative that comes here to share that with us, because we generally approve what we hear and what's testified about, and not what innuendo that we hear through the grapevine. So, but you're a renter, it sounds like. So,
But I've been there for 8 years, and I've lived in that neighborhood for much longer than that. The short-term rentals we have a problem with are the ones that aren't legal,
right, understood. Well, thank you for your testimony.
like Airstreams.
Anyone else? Thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Okay, very good. The case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff? If not, then I would love to have another motion to approve or deny. Hot digging, you on the roll today.
Mr. Chairman, I made a
Open up over
motion
here.
to approve this application for a special exemption for short-term rental in the case of BZA 0223000655. I find it meets all three of the conditions. The first one being compatible with existing uses in the vicinity, will not adversely affect the general welfare or character of the immediate community or other rental property in the community. Number two, adequate provision is made and exists for such items as setbacks, buffering, including fences and landscaping, to protect adjacent properties from adverse influence, and proposed STRP use, such as noise, traffic, congestion, trash, parking, similar factors. And number three, complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, and applicable site plan review requirements. And also to include that the provisions as cited by staff would be included in part of the approval.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so very much. So we have a motion that's been properly moved and second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. It is unanimous. You will please tell your friend, a very good friend of yours, that her application has been approved, and within 10 days, she'll begin information from this staff letting them know the next steps in the process. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Y'all
Yes.
have a good evening.
Yes.
I need to see out.
All right.
Dr.
So,
Orcutt, right there.
Oh, yeah, he's a good one.
He's fine.
so once again, Mr. Downey, BZA case 02-23-0065.
Mr. Chairman.
You want a 5-minute
Chance we
break?
can have a brief.
Okay.
that's what I
All
was
right. I
thinking.
thought we were going to push it on. So if you don't mind, we're going to have a 10-minute recess.
Like we could do, thank you. Small. Your Dawson's wife.
Well, in this case, I mean.
And I get that, but.
As a prosecutor, he was my prosecutor.
Oh, yeah.
And her whole life.
Right, exactly.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to reconvene. Mr. Downey, if you would, please.
BZA case 02-23-00653. The applicant and property owner, Virginia Haynes, is requesting a variance to reduce the required 15-foot interior side setback for 3 existing detached structures at 3321 Jesse Walls Drive, TMS number T256000063 on Johns Island in Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located in the agriculture AGR zoning district. More specifically, the applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the 3 existing detached accessory structures and reduce the 15-foot interior side setback by 13.6 feet to 1.4 feet for an existing garage, to reduce the 15-foot interior side setback by 14.1 feet to 0.9 feet for a shed, and to reduce the 15-foot interior side setback by 7 feet to 8 feet for another shed. The subject property is 1.5 acres and contains a single-family home that was constructed in 2003 per Charleston County records, a swimming pool, an unpermitted structure, garage, the 2 unpermitted sheds. The applicant and property owner would like to bring all of the unpermitted accessory structures into compliance. The applicant's letter of intent says we have installed a carport about 10 years ago or so. Our builder did not tell us that we needed to meet the setbacks in a permit. Our adjoining neighbors, Burgess and Emma Hayward, said that they would not contest. Emma said she did not know that they were there. You cannot see it from the property there is about 15 to 20 feet strip of trees and vegetation with a drainage ditch behind our building along the property line so that the structures are not noticed. Staff did conduct a site visit on March the 14th, 2023, and please review any attachments. So here's the definition of the agriculture AGR zoning district with the setbacks. Thank you. That is the subject property. An aerial view of the subject property. A zoomed in and a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. The sign that was posted in the yard when staff conducted their site visit on the 14th. That is the accessory garage. That is one of the sheds on the parcel. That is the other shed that's on the parcel. More pictures of the existing subject property. And that is Jesse Qualls Road. Well, Jesse Qualls Drive, excuse me. These are some photographs that were provided to you by the applicant. More photos provided by the applicant. So, as far as the criteria are concerned, staff believes that criteria 1 may have been met. It meets criteria 2. It may meet criteria 3. It may meet criteria 4. It meets criteria 5. It may meet criteria 6. And may meet criteria 7. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 02-23-00653, a variance request to reduce the 15-foot interior side setback for 3 existing detached accessory structures at 3321 Jesse Qualls Road, TMS number 256-0000063 on Johns Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve the application, the board should consider the following recommendation by staff. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits for the unpermitted detached structures. This is a copy of the site plan and the plat. Any questions?
Anybody have a question? Yes, Mr. Marchant.
Chairman, Mr. Downing, the carport that was referenced in the notes that you read, is that the same as the garage?
Yes, sir. It was converted from a carport to a garage, from my understanding.
So the carport was built 10 years ago and it was converted sometime between now. Okay.
Yes, sir. That's a question you can ask the applicant when it was converted to a garage.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. Is the applicant present? Very good. Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
My name is Neil Haynes. I live at 3321 Jesse Qualls Road, Johns Island, South Carolina. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for hearing me. I lived on 5 different sailboats for 35 years, if that has anything to do with this. I don't know a whole lot about land. I know nothing about setbacks. I wasn't informed that I had to set back the buildings. My builder didn't inform me, and I'm an error, and I would like to correct it.
That was to the point. Okay. Does anybody? Yes, sir.
Mr. Haynes, how did you determine that you were out of compliance? What brought this to your attention, and what prompted your request?
We got a letter from the county with an aerial photograph showing that our garage was over our neighbor's property line, and it actually isn't. And then that's how we found out that we were in non-compliance.
I see. Thank you.
Tell us about the conversion from a carport to a garage.
We decided we wanted to keep our cars cleaner, so we just closed it in. And there again, I thought my builders were going to take care of everything then, and I didn't know about setbacks. Only thing I knew about setbacks when I lived aboard a sailboat was to stay away from everybody that was out there.
Yeah.
Those were my setbacks.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? Mr. Williams?
Sir, how long you been living at this property?
2020.
We got our 2000, we bought it in 2000. We were able to move in 2005.
2005.
When did you build these sheds?
The garden shed has been out there as long as we've been out there. The garage has probably been out there 10 to 11 years. The plant shed I built that for my wife for her 60th birthday, and she is now 73. It's been there for a while. I get in trouble with anniversaries and birthdays. I'm sorry.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
Forgiveness. You built it for a birthday. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir, for your testimony today.
Yep. Anything that I can't answer, she can.
Well, I'll give her a chance to come up.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else that want to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition to this application? Okay. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Burgess Haywood. Address 3345 Jessica Wells Drive. Me and Haynes, we talked to each other about this, and just like I told him the land that would be taken away from this acre and a half of property. And I explained to him that I can't do that for him because, hey, the house that I live in right now, I'm still paying for it. I'm fixing to retire. I am 71 years old.
Sir, please address the board.
I'm 71 years old, and I'm trying to fix to retire. And if something was to happen to me today or tomorrow, my wife, Emma, and I have a daughter, Crystal. My son died about a year ago, 2 years ago. And I told him then, I said, look, Mr. Haynes, I can't do nothing for you. 5 years ago, I built a dock on the water where my house is. 3 years later, the zoning, whoever came, tell me I had to move the dock. I spent $20,000 to move part of my dock from one place to about 7 feet over. Wasn't my fault. It was the people who built it for it. But I had to move it. If she had to sell that acre and a half of property, she can't sell it as an acre and a half. Because you got, 11, 13 feet off of it, and I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't do it. And that's what me and my wife came up with, and that's where we stand. I wish I could help you, but I can't.
Okay, hold on. Ms. Working, could you pull up the map again, please? The aerial, yep. Oh, okay, there you go. All right. All right, so the subject property is 63 that we're talking about, the application.
Right.
And you are parcel
61. My house is on 61. I live on 61.
Okay,
You
so
own 62.
you own 62 as well.
60, yeah, so 62 and 61 I own.
Okay,
I live on 61.
okay. So you're telling us that the shed encroaches on your property?
No, I didn't say that. No.
Well,
No, it didn't. It's not on the property, it's about 3 feet off the property line.
But it's still on the applicant's property?
Right, yes.
Okay. So you have a problem with the amount of setback that you could?
Right.
Okay.
That I have to give up if I
Well,
had to.
no, it's nothing you give up, but.
Right.
Okay.
That was
But-
the question you just asked it. I was wondering if the shed was on his property.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Marchant.
Mr. Hayward, can you help us understand why you're against us approving him leaving the shed where it is?
He can leave the shed where it is, but I can't give him the other 13 feet is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That he's asking for.
I think the understanding is that his shed's on his existing property.
Right.
And all he's asking for is for us to allow him to leave the shed there because it's in a setback on his property. It doesn't affect your property.
But if I gave him 13 feet, it would be affecting my property.
So,
Go ahead, Mr. Hayward.
So, Mr. Hayward, just to clarify, the adjustment for the setback on his property does not create an adverse effect for your property. So, reducing his setback doesn't do anything to your property and the setbacks on your property. So, if this is approved tonight, it will have no effect on your property.
Well, that's fine. I don't mind that. Because it's not affecting my property. I still have my acre and a half property.
Yes, sir.
That's no effect.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
So you understand, if this is approved, it has nothing to do with your property. You just confirmed, and I'm not allowed to ask questions. I'm just the attorney.
Right.
And there was testimony that by Mr. I'm sorry,
Haynes.
Mr. Haynes, that there is no encroachment, meaning none of the items that if the adjustments in the setbacks are approved, none of those items are breaching or across the property lines. So nothing that this board might approve tonight as it relates to Mr. and Mrs. Haynes will have any effect on your property.
As long as it don't have any effect on my property.
It
or
will
my
not,
acre
sir.
and a half, then, now, could I assist? Let's say I was to build a house on that property.
You have every right that you had before you came to this meeting today.
Mhm.
You still have. You can build a house. It's your property.
So in other words, I can go, if he got the 13 feet that he needs, I can go 10 feet to my line and build a house.
As long as you're within the setbacks for your property.
Right.
And see, the interesting thing about this, if you needed to encroach in the setback, you can come to this board and ask for the same thing. And so it doesn't affect his property either. So it's just contained within your lot. Okay?
Right.
So yes, if you needed to do something on your property and you needed some variance or special exception from this board, this is where you would come. But as it relates to Mr. and Mrs. Haynes, they're asking for something just for their lot. So it does not affect any property rights that you have, sir.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
As long as it don't affect my property,
I can assure you that it does not, sir.
there's no problem with me.
You have any other questions?
No.
Okay.
We have any? No. We have any.
Thank you so very much for your testimony today, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us why we should deny this application.
Thomas Qualls, 3660, no, what's my address? 3810 Shadow Pond Road. I'm telling you my Michigan address in Johns Island. I still need some clarification because I'm saying here that, you know, I'm not being technical. This is all sentimental. I grew up there where there are houses with my okra field and my watermelon field and stuff. And you know, I was very hurt when I came back from the army and they had sold the thing. Of course, it wasn't mine not to sell, but it was just part of the family. And I didn't have a problem with the fact that they were there. And I know and perhaps I have the wrong idea of what setbacks are. In my mind, this is the property line, okay? And I can build if the setback is 5 feet, I can build up to 5 feet to that property line. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
So now you're telling me that what you're doing is reducing his setback?
If the board.
He has asked the board
Yeah,
to reduce the setback. Yes, sir.
So now rather than having his normal 15-foot setback, he's going to have 1.5 foot setback, 1.4 feet setback?
If that's what he's asking the board. If it is approved, and that's what he's requesting from the board, then the setback, just for purposes of what they're asking for tonight, it would be reduced.
I know it's perhaps none of my business, but again, all family property, and it's all family, and I'm just, I don't want to see 1 inch go. They've already taken too many.
So,
So
sir,
I'm happy with your explanation, sir.
Okay. If just to understand that you're not losing anything.
I understand.
And they're not losing anything.
Yes, I understand your explanation. It's all within
Yes,
the
sir.
line, not over.
Yes, sir.
That's correct. Just sort of tells me that it's over.
Can I add something to that?
Probably not.
All right. I was going to explain something else to him, but.
No, that's
right.
good. Thank you, though, Mr. Williams. I appreciate that. Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition?
And I would just say that if the board grants it, like Calvin's saying, it's for the existing structures only. If they
Not
come
for
build
new.
something else, they still have to comply with the required setbacks. They don't get to come closer around new structures. These are for the existing structures.
So you have the right of rebuttal.
To what?
You have the right of rebuttal. Although they came for information, you have the right to rebuke anything that they just said. If you do wish. You don't have to if you don't need to, but.
I think that the attorney explained it because we were trying to get that. My name is Virginia Haynes.
So you're here now. So
3321 Jesse Qualls.
there we go.
And I'm grateful that you explained about the setback because Burgess thought that we were encroaching on his property. And we tried to explain that his property stays his property. So I appreciate you explaining that to him. That's all.
That's why we keep him up here. Brilliance. Thank you. All right. So this case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions, staff? If not, then I'd like to get a motion to approve or deny this particular case, 653. Anyone? Can I get a motion to approve or deny?
All right, I'll tackle it just to go ahead and get it started.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So in the case of BZA 0223000653, I am compelled to approve this particular application in testimony that the structures have been in place for over 10 years with really no detrimental impact to anybody living near or related to the properties is mainly what compels me toward that, recognizing that the applicant's contractor did not construct the building in its proper location or follow the proper procedures for doing so. So we'll use that as our backdrop for approving this particular request. So I find that it meets criteria number one, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this piece of property. And given that with this particular one, a contractor failed to follow the proper procedures, and we're going to rely on that for approval of this particular request. Criteria number two, that these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. The applicant has stated that this is unique to their property, so we'll use that as criteria two. For criteria three, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict utilization of the property. Requiring the owner to relocate three structures would actually be difficult in this particular case. So We'll say we meet criteria 3. For criteria 4, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed. Again, with these structures that have been in place for over 10 years, I believe that they have coexisted with the neighbors for quite some time before this was brought to everyone's attention. For criteria 5, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. The fact that property may be utilized more properly should a variance be granted may not be considered grounds for the variance. We clearly meet that criteria. For criteria 6, the variant is not the result of the applicant's own actions. Again, the applicant has testified that the contractor did not follow the proper procedure, so we meet that criteria. In criteria 7, that the granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. In making this recommendation to approve, or this motion to approve, we should add the one special condition as recommended by staff. That's my motion.
Thank you so very much. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We have a motion that has been properly moved and second. Any question or discussion?
Mr. Jordan.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jordan.
I certainly don't pretend to know the answer to this, so please help me. But what is the difference between, on one hand, the man was required to move his dock, on the other hand, the man was not required to move his building? Same area, same neighborhood. What is the difference?
I would say one difference would be the jurisdiction between the two. And even in the case of moving the dock, the owner, we don't know the specifics behind that. And the owner would have had the opportunity to deal with SED-HEC OCRM in moving that dock or complying with those, with their specific rules related to the dock.
A state, that would be a state.
Right.
For that.
Through an appeals process.
Through an appeals process similar to what we're doing tonight.
Okay.
I feel sorry for the forum. That's a tough thing to have to do to move a structure like that.
$20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other?
I wanted to say I'm mindful of the equitable estoppel or laches argument, if you will, but I'm persuaded more by the reason that we have setbacks is to promote space between
Neighbors.
properties. And if somebody chose to build, they would be entitled to have the requisite setback in this case. Given what we're doing, it seems to me, with all respect, I understand the other side and I've made that qualification, but there's a reason for the law, and I would be persuaded that we should follow the law and require the requisite setbacks.
Well, that's why you're here.
Thank you.
And that's why the chairperson recommended that you're here to speak your point
I got
and
another
to represent. Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, sir, you did not.
Again, please help me understand. But I hear it that everything was supposedly fine, everybody was getting along, living together, but it was the county that found there's a problem that has initiated the situation we're in now. I mean, when I say initiate, I mean the county trying to get the law followed.
Compliance.
But if the county had not found it, what would the outcome be? We wouldn't be here, right?
We would probably be here at some point because a future property owner would find out that this was an issue and they would come and blame it on the prior property owner and ask for the exact same thing.
But we wouldn't be here today.
We would not be here today, no.
Thank you.
Could be a whistleblower. You have no idea. Great points.
Just a comment since we're in discussion, and I appreciate what Mr. Trustin is saying. I too struggle with this kind of stuff sometimes because it's forgiveness. We're dealing with a forgiveness issue, and frankly, negligence on the part of a licensed contractor to not go through the proper proceedings for permit and all those kind of things. In the practice that I'm in, it's always the fault of the owner first, and then the consultant second, but certainly the consultant who's licensed to practice. At least that's the way I understand it. Ross may disagree. However, in a case such as this, unless there's detriment to an adjacent owner where they say this is affecting my well-being, which we heard him say it doesn't, as long as it doesn't affect his property, then I'm usually inclined to approve something like this because there's not upcry and uproar. But I agree with what you're saying fundamentally or on the surface about setbacks are there for a reason, create buffer between properties, right? So anyway.
I'm kind of a mind you have to feed everybody out of the same spoon of
Yeah, I hear you.
Justice. And I understand the family has a very compelling reason for what they want to do, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm just overly sensitive to the precedent.
It's a tough one. I mean, I'm with you. So.
Good points of you, gentlemen. Ms. Smalls, seem like I can see the wheels in your mind moving too. No? Okay. All right. All right. So, Mr. Williams?
I'd like to withdraw my second.
Oh.
From what I was hearing. Yeah.
So your second does not, it's not
Okay.
approval, it's
Okay.
just a second of.
To move forward.
So
Okay.
you can call for a vote and vote against it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Call for
It's not-
question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's what I'm cool too. Yes, sir. All right. Well, we have the question. I'm sorry, you can't answer anything at this time. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. So 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? Uh-oh. It fails.
Counter motion to deny. So
The motion to approve.
The motion to approve is denied. Okay. Unfortunately, sir, this motion has been disapproved. You'll be getting information from staff to let you know the next steps in the process. It is unfortunate, but it has been so moved. Very good. Say again?
Don't you have to do a motion to deny?
Yes, we do have to do a motion, and I got ahead of myself, didn't I? So, yes, that's correct. So somebody else needs to, you want to go ahead and put a motion together to deny?
Well, I'm the newest member.
That's all right.
I'll
You
do my-
can work
I'll-
through it.
I would
to
move
denial, you
to,
just have to state the criteria that it doesn't meet
I
when you
would,
make your
I
motion.
would move to deny.
You only need one.
Right.
But if
Based on
you
one
find
of the-
that it
I
needs
would base
more-
it, the threshold would be that doesn't qualify under subsection 1, extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular property. That would be my first reason. I think I only need one.
How, for purposes of appeals, if there are other reasons, you should state any and all reasons that you.
Thank you.
Number 2, the conditions do not, it says that the conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. I would be worried about the precedent of not treating everybody equally. And if the homeowner wanted to build on the adjoining property and have space that would be required with setbacks, it would be butted up against somebody who would not be honoring the same setbacks. I think that would also include number 3, the condition, the application of the ordinance to this particular piece of property would or would not effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The most compelling to me would be under number 4. This would provide a substantial detriment to the adjacent property because he would have a structure in closer proximity to his if he would choose to build on that property than would otherwise be applicable. I think those are my reasons.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Jordan has a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of denying this application, BZA 02-23-00653, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand.
Aye.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? It carries. Unfortunately, your application was not approved tonight. In 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff, letting you know the next steps in the process, along with any appeal rights that you may have. Thank you. Okay, moving forward. Our next case is case BZA-02-23-00656 that will be conducted by Ms. Working.
The applicants and property owners, Baker and Courtney Bishop, represented by Bridges Williams of Flyway, South Carolina LLC, is requesting a variance to reduce the required 50-foot OCRM, which is the Office of Ocean and Coastal Resource Management, critical line setback, and to reduce the required 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer for 2 existing detached accessory structures at 2592 Bohicket Road, which is TMS number 25700000034 on Johns Island in Charleston County. The subject property and surrounding properties are located in the agricultural residential AGR zoning district. More specifically, the applicant is requesting a variance for 2 existing detached accessory structures to reduce the required 50-foot OCRM critical line setback by 44.4 feet to 5.6 feet, and to reduce the required 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer by 29.4 feet to 5.6 feet at the closest point for the barn. To reduce the required 50-foot OCRM critical line setback by 44 feet to 6 feet, and to reduce the required 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer by 29 feet to 6 feet at the closest point for the shed. The subject property is 3.49 acres, and the property contains a 1,487 square foot manufactured home, an 835 square foot barn, and a 161 square foot shed. This is the zoning requirements in the ordinance, the zoomed in aerials, zoomed out, the sign of the posting sign. We visited the site on March 14th. This is a photograph of the barn and the shed and the existing manufactured home and the subject property, adjacent properties. That's the full site. I zoomed in so you can actually see, hopefully, the structures. That's the plat. And regarding the approval criteria, we thought that it may meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and that it meets 5. The board may approve with conditions, or deny the request based on the board's findings of fact. In the event the board chooses to approve the application, we have a couple of recommended conditions. 1, the applicant shall coordinate with Public Works Stormwater Division to address stormwater mitigation measures for each structure, such as the use of rain barrels or rain gardens to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh from the roofs. Documentation of the approved measures shall be submitted as part of the zoning permit application. 2, the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits for the shed and barn. And 3, the variance approval is for the existing shed and existing barn only. Building and zoning approval is required for any proposed renovations, additions, and or other construction on site. And that's all I got.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Working, how did we get here?
They came in for renovations and found out that that these 2 buildings existed without permits.
Okay. And how approximately how long do you know?
How long have
they been in place?
the barns been there?
And the reason I ask is the delineation of the OCRM line and the buffer, and has that changed over time?
Yes, 2001. So I think if they were there before 2001, there were not OCRM requirements. There were setbacks, but not OCRM.
Okay. So they may have been in compliance when the structures were originally in place.
Possibly, but they don't have permits, so we can't verify that.
Any other questions?
So this is
okay.
This is only for barn and shed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marchand. Anyone else have a question of Ms. Working? Thank you, Ms. Working. Is the applicant present?
I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Bishop.
Very good. Would you please move forward and tell us why we should approve the application? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Michelle Scholes. My address is 1210 River Reach Drive, Charleston, South Carolina. I'm here representing Mr. and Mrs. Bishop because they're out of the country and could not make it here. They purchased this property approximately 2 years ago, and these were existing structures that were on the property. They already have a house, and they just wanted to make improvements to it, just to make sure they're safe and everything else. That's when they came and found out that there was no permits. So they would like to make everything compliant for the existing structures. They believe the structures have been there for quite a long time. They're not exactly sure, but they do believe, it could be 10, 20 years that they have been there.
Okay. All right, let's see if anyone has a question for you. If not, I'll start off. Are they movable?
No. And they have no intentions of moving them. They would like to keep them there if they're approved.
Okay.
I mean, but there's no.
I'm just saying, sometimes you have the little sheds that you kind of just buy and drop in.
Oh, no. They
were built on
one
a
is
foundation.
built on like a small foundation. I think there was a picture of one. It actually has some concrete pillars underneath it of some sort.
Okay. I think anyone else have any questions? Mr. Nelson?
Does the barn actually cross the critical line, or is it just within the buffer? Because there's some written testimony that indicates that it actually crosses into the critical area.
The barn is within the critical line, but not within the setbacks.
Looking at that map.
Yeah, they're both in the setback and the buffer.
Right, but it doesn't cross the actual critical line.
No.
Right?
No.
That's that dark line.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see, but I do see the shed
Yeah, it's right
there as well. So that's where the OC. It's hard to see it on there. I can see it here.
No idea when either structure was built.
They've been there for a long time from the previous owner. That was when they tried to figure it out.
I do have a question as well.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
Ma'am, do you know how big those sheds are? What are the size dimensions of it?
The shed
Is it safe?
is 10 by 16, and the barn is 23 by 30, 29.
Correct.
Do you know what kind of shape the sheds are in? Are they going to try to fix it up, or are they going to just...
They want to make, if they're allowed to keep them, they want to make them obviously safe and do whatever's necessary to make them compliant. They will move them if necessary.
So we do have pictures of both barns and shed, right?
It looks like they were, I'm looking at building footprints and they're showing up in the building footprint from 1992. That's the earliest I have, so. Doesn't go back any further, but.
92, that's still 20-something.
Any other questions? Ms. Working, can you pull up the picture on the slide there, the barn and then the shed as well? They're on the same slide pretty much. So you can kind of see the condition of the shed and the barn. It does show some age. Not a very good close-up, but it gives you an indication of the condition that it's in. And you mentioned that they're in good repair?
Yes. They will need repairs. They want to make them, but they've just purchased the property within the last 2 years. So their intention was to improve them.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so very much for your time today and your testimony. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? All right. This application, you got a question, Mr. Mark?
Just for staff, I know we'll get there. I was trying to get ahead.
That's all right. I'm slow tonight.
So, Ms. Workey, you said the footprints were in the aerial from 1992. Is that right? So, can you, with the
So we know they were there.
in 1992. So, with that time stamp, can you speculate that's pre OCRM lines and buffers and all that?
Or post OCRM lines, but would be, what would the ordinance have been?
So the OCRM lines were 2001, but setbacks would have been before that. I mean, there's still a chance that they were built back in the early 90s or 80s and just didn't get it.
Well, I'm trying to establish a timeline such that it makes sense to approve this because the buildings have been in place before any of these requirements were in place. And if that's the
They
case,
definitely weren't in place before the OCRM.
yeah.
I just don't know what the side setback would have been.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we don't know if they were a legal non-conforming use now, right?
Right. We only, unless somebody can provide a permit is the only way you can determine that. Or some other evidence, but it can be hard to do.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that to the forefront. Any other questions of staff? Very good. So we'll now close it to the public. I need a motion to approve or deny, ladies and gentlemen, or lady and gentlemen.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
In BZA case number 0223000656, I move to approve based on I believe it meets all 7 criteria. Criteria number 1, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property, in addition to its odd shape in relationship to the OCRM line. Based on the testimony that I've heard, I believe that these structures were probably built within the right of their location at the time of their building. So I believe it meets criteria number 1. Criteria number 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Again, if you look at the way that the property is laid out with the property line and it's in the adjacent natural conditions, I believe that is unique and does not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. Criteria number 3, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Again, we're dealing with existing structures, so I believe it meets that criterion. Criteria number 4, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. We've not heard any testimony to that effect, so I believe it does meet that criterion. Criteria number 5, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district. The use is not changing in this case, so it meets that criterion. Criteria number 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. As we heard from the testimony of the representative of the applicant, the property was purchased 2 years ago and the structures were in place many, many years before the purchase, so it's not the result of the applicant's own actions. And criteria number 7, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purpose of the ordinance. In addition to meeting the 7 criteria, this motion includes the conditions as the 3 conditions as stated by staff. Here ends my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you.
Who's second?
Nelson.
Nelson?
Yes.
Who is it? Which one?
Take your pick.
Yeah, take your pick.
Okay.
They're both going at it simultaneously.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Any, no opposed. Thank you. Unanimous? Wait. Oh, there you go. Okay. Your application has been approved. Thank you so very much. Within 10 days, staff will be sending you information, letting you know the next steps in the process for your friend and your representative. So thank you so very much. Yes, good night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the end of the show. And we have the last case that will be conducted by Ms. Working, case BZA 02-23-00657.
The applicant, Cody Collerman of Zetro Farms, Inc., and the property owner, Pickney Michael, thank you, are requesting a special exception for hemp farm production in the Agricultural Preservation AG 10 zoning district at 8932 Peters Point Road, which is TMS number 02500000154 on Edisto Island in Charleston County. Adjacent properties are also located in the Agricultural Preservation AG 10 zoning district. The subject property is 185.9 acres total, and 62.5 acres of that is highland. This is the applicable zoning ordinance that requires a special exception for this use. The applicant is currently in the site plan review process for the proposed hemp farm production use. These are the aerial photographs, zoomed out. A photograph of the sign we posted on March 14th. Some photographs of the farming equipment. And then the site plan and the plats. Regarding the 6 special exception approval criteria, we stated that it may meet 1, 2, and 6, and that it meets 3, 4, and 5. The board may approve with conditions, or deny this request based on the board's findings of fact, unless additional information is necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the application, the board consider the following conditions. 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process and provide the current South Carolina Department of Agricultural hemp grower approved application and license. 2, the applicant shall obtain all applicable zoning and building permits for any unpermitted structures on the property. That's all I've got.
Do we have any questions of Ms. Working? Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
Ms. Working, is this another compliance issue, or was this a new use for growing hemp specifically?
This is in our use table. It requires a special exception.
Right. Was the owner currently using it to grow hemp?
Yes, and I believe they got state approval, but not local.
Okay. So is it a compliance thing? That was my question.
Well, yes.
They have obtained.
Yes.
Okay.
But it is required special exception in the use table.
Mr. Martin.
Mr. Chairman, to follow up with Mr. Nelson's question, for how long has it been used in this capacity? And I guess, pardon my ignorance, why is this a special exception? I mean, why isn't this part of normal working? Just because of the nature of the product? I mean, is that the issue? I'm just curious, really.
I don't know why it's like that in the use table. This is actually our first one that we had. If there's others, they haven't asked for it.
Well, of course, but I mean.
But yeah, this is the first one we've had in 20 years. So.
Ms. Stiles.
Yeah, so we spoke with Mr. Kellerman in a pre-application meeting in January of 2021 and found out that he was operating and had some unpermitted structures on the property, and have been working with him ever since to try to get that resolved.
But this isn't about structures, right? This is about the type of.
This is about use,
Right.
and the structures that are a part of his operation will be permitted once we know the use is approvable.
Okay, so hemp's just one of those agricultural practices that the county wants an exception for or variance for
Right, following the
And
state.
tomatoes or okra or corn or green beans.
Yeah, following when the state decided to start their permitting and licensing
Yep.
process, we followed suit with that.
Okay.
Good questions.
Is hemp the only product, agricultural product that currently you would need a special exception to grow, or are there others?
It would be listed in that same agricultural section of the use table that you have.
The use table.
It seems so.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because there's so many things that are like silviculture and agriculture are generally exempt from these things.
Concentrated animal feeding operations is a special exception.
That makes sense.
But, I mean, you're not growing, you know.
A winery is a conditional use.
That's it. The others
Okay,
are
that's
either
it.
conditional or allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, it's got hemp in here. Good question, gentlemen. Any other questions of staff? All right. Yes, sir. Your turn to shine now. She asked that you, one moment. It was asked that you wanted to defer.
No, I think we are complete full compliance.
Your Honor, I'm Carolyn Blue, and I'm an attorney and property owner of 15 tracts. And we just found out about this today, including we own the private road along with Mr. Michael. And so we had asked to have a continuance to the next meeting because some of the other property owners, one's in Atlanta right now, could not get here tonight because I found out about this at 1 o'clock today. Mr. Michael, when I asked him if he would consent.
No.
He's the property owner.
What I'm asking you to do is go to the podium.
Okay.
And start over. State your
I
name.
am Carolyn Blue. I'm a local attorney, and I'm a property owner of 15 tracts.
You
and
are a
I-
representative of the property.
I am
But you are not a representative of the applicant, correct?
correct. I am here.
She's in opposition.
You were
I'm in
opposition.
opposition.
So, I'm
Yeah, that's
sorry,
what
I was confused.
Yeah,
I
we're
thought
going
you,
out of order.
I thought you
I
were
thought you were-
representing, no, I was
No,
confused.
no, sir.
So I asked if you would please sit.
I thought you were asking me to go ahead and make my motion
no,
to
no,
delay.
I thought you was representing the applicant.
No. She's
Okay.
asking a procedural question. She's asking for a deferral or a continuance, meaning she's asking that the applicant does not present. And so the question is whether or not you're going to entertain her request or let the applicant present and then entertain her request for a continuance. It's not her case. But what she is saying is that she just received notice of this. And I believe, if I'm correct, you're saying that you're an attorney, but you're also a property owner. And you
Correct.
feel your property rights will be affected negatively or positively by whether or not this is approved.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that
So
clear for everyone?
that's good, and thank you for bringing that to my point. So as a point of clarity, how should we proceed then? Because over 14 years, I hadn't crossed that bridge.
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Marshall, go ahead.
I move that we proceed as through the normal course of business.
Well, I was thinking that too, because that is the applicant.
That's
And
my
then-
motion, Mr. Chairman.
Is this your ear pods?
Okay, now that we worked out some in-house,
Are there any questions?
We had a motion and a second. so-
I seconded.
well, it really is nothing really on
Well,
the floor.
it doesn't require a motion.
Yeah. So I'm just making a point of clarity. Yes, sir. So now that we have recognized you as the applicant, because that's what's before us,
Yes, sir.
would you please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve this application?
Yes, sir. My name is Cody Collerman of 8465 Chisholm Plantation Road, Edisto Island, South Carolina 29438. And I'm asking the board and the chairman to approve.
We'll get you the question.
I've been in compliance with federal and state law for the last 2 years. I've done this. Originally, when I reached out for the site plan review, I was under the assumption that I needed a business license, but I cannot sell to individuals, if that makes sense, due to the state law. I can only sell my product to other licensee processors, etc. I started all this 2 years ago. I essentially quit my job and sold everything I have. My mother was saved by, now I know this is hemp, but it's under the cannabis of plant umbrella, I guess you could say. Cannabis saved my mother's life from opioid overdoses, essentially. Cannabis saved my life in California for my PTSD and drinking problems. And I know this is a very stigmatic issue in South Carolina, but this plant helps people. And when I sold everything to do this back in 2020, my mother reached out to the Edisto Island Land Trust, who is with us on this issue, and connected me with Mr. Pickney Michael. He gladly allowed me to use his property with a lease. We went through all the steps I needed to with the state to farm this, and at the time there was a lot of confusion with the Farm Bureau and the state that I fell under the Right to Farm Act, which I don't need a business license, so I do apologize for all that fighting back and forth for the last year and a half, but I am trying to get in compliance with the county so I can continue operations. I know one of the issues was before this meeting, we submitted applications, so I do have my 2023 permit here. I also brought a printout of the participation agreement.
Are you willing to turn that over?
Yes, sir.
Let's get a copy of it at least.
Yeah, and you can take the participation agreement also that has all the state and federal law. I also have the cash lease that I had to get notarized and submitted to the Register of Deeds with the county this year. That was a requirement with the state. And if you would go back to can you bring up the site plan? So I know it's very hard to see, but essentially I'm only using this plot right here for hemp. All these other plots, it was recommended that if I was going to further use them in the future, possibly to include them. So right now, this is all essentially clover, ryegrass, just a cover crop to keep the soil healthy, essentially. Other than that, I'm in compliance with the federal and state law, and it looks like with some of the issues regarding the hemp stuff, I am. What was that? It was 3, 1, 2, and 6 was the most likely. But if there's anything I need to do, I'll gladly do it. When it comes to the whole structure thing, I only brought one horticulture building there, which was used for propagation and drying and storage. The pole barn, the 2 other small buildings, and the hoop houses were already pre-existing with Mr. Michael. He can come up here and explain that he went through that process and got through the final end of the board and said, since they are agricultural accessory use, they do not require building permits. They just have to be safe, and I'll gladly go through all that. If I have any questions, concerns, or a rebuttal, I'll gladly do it.
I guess the first thing on top of mind for me, you're leasing this property.
Yes, sir.
How long is your lease?
This is until 2024, because it was 2 years from 2020 to 2022 and just released it up until 2024.
And how many acres of hemp are you currently harvesting and
this
producing?
year? Sorry to cut you off. This year the plan is less than an acre.
Less than an acre. And if you're approved and moving forward, how many acres would you expand to?
I think the most I could, for this year, I've only permitted this 2 small fields, a small field there, and then these hoop houses and 1 horticultural structure for storage.
But later on, if you had the ability, how many more acres would you produce? Yeah.
I understand the question. That's hard to say, honestly, because the market is just not there. But if the best case scenario is I would use all of those that I've labeled for farming. I've left the buffer here just because of the property, and then this field up here I didn't zone just because of the critical line with St. Prairie Creek. And I also didn't want, if someone was here, to be able to see it. So I wanted to keep it out of line of sight.
Okay. I know this board has a couple other questions. Mr. Marchant.
Can you help us understand how the production of hemp or the farming of hemp is different than other agricultural practices that would be permitted? Tomatoes, corn, whatever. Is there anything special about growing hemp other than other products?
It kind of grows just like a tomato. It's classified as an agricultural product federally and on the state level, so it's no different from soybeans, corn, this and that. The only thing that I have to do is, besides the telling them with geolocation and total square footage of all that, so I'm in compliance with SLED, all I have to do is I have to let them know when I'm planting. 30 days before harvest, I have to notify them for a sample request. They come out, take a sample. Usually it goes to gel, that was mentioned earlier. And then once approved, I'm allowed to harvest. If once I harvest, they come inspect and make sure it was harvested and it's not like hidden anywhere else on the property. And last year, essentially, the deer ate it all. So I had to do a destruction form, and they come out there and just made sure that I either burnt it, mulched it, tilled it under, whatever it is.
So same fertilizers, water, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And then my only other question is, I guess, related to the post-processing. I mean, you're using this for cannabis oils. What do you?
No, sir. Only cultivation. I'm not legally allowed to do any sort of
So the
processing.
post-production is not on your end. It's
No, sir. I send it to a company, a licensed processing lab up in Columbia.
Okay.
And then they take it from there.
Gotcha. So nothing of that happens on site?
No, sir.
Okay.
I know one of the questions was the hindering the road coming. I'm sorry if I cut off questions. It's his driveway. I might go there once every other day for an hour, and maybe every 2 weeks. I have usually 2 other veterans with me that want to come down to the farm and help out. We do like the heavy lifting day. We do that every 2 weeks.
So you don't have direct access to this?
Yes, sir. From Peters Point Road onto the private road, which is owned by the family together, I guess you could say. And then it's a private driveway, which is Mr. Michael's driveway to his house. And essentially it's his residence is located right here. So this is his driveway. So essentially we just come in and I have a marked parking area right here for us.
Mr. Jordan, I interrupted you.
Oh, you didn't. But thank you. I guess my question's moot now, but I'll ask you anyway, because I still like an answer. And that is, following the process that we went through a minute ago to decide if we were going to hear this, in the name of fairness, I was curious, how did it come about that this lady didn't hear about this till 1 o'clock today? Because I know you posted.
Yeah, we posted the sign, like I said, on March 14th. It runs in the Post and Courier. We have a list of people on Edisto, about, what do you think, 40, 30 people?
Yeah, it's about 40.
And they want to be notified of every single thing on Edisto, regardless of what it is, rezoning, anything. So we have that list, and then we have the 300 foot. So with a bigger parcel, the 300 foot only captures 5 properties, which I think was just 3 owners. Ends up being 3 owners. The ones that have the numbers are the ones that captured.
And I'm one of those owners.
Okay. Which one?
I'm not sworn in yet, so.
Okay, because I looked and I couldn't find.
So were we supposed to take a vote whether or not to proceed tonight? I didn't see no vote.
No, sir. No, he has every right. He put in an application, paid the money to have his case heard. So, no, sir. There's no vote for that.
Okay.
Mr. Williams.
Question. How you doing? My question to you is,
Good point.
how much hemp do you plan on producing in what given time?
This year, we're actually looking to start planting within the next month or so. It's about a 5-month process. We're looking at within, if you go back, I can't remember the exact square footage, but it's less than an acre. We're talking 200 plants. Yes, so this field, and there's a field right here you kind of can't see that's marked. So about almost 200 plants, and we space them 7 foot by 7 foot.
Over what period of time?
It would be typically from the end of April till about June, late August, October timeframe.
And then plant again at some point?
The next year.
Next year, okay. And then what's the, I know our table we have here, but what's the difference between hemp and cannabis?
It's less than 0.3% Delta-9 THC. Delta-9 is the psychoactive ingredient, I guess you could say, that would give you that alleviating high effect. With this, with the hemp plant, it has to be less than 0.3% Delta-9 THC. And with the testing, we are only allowed I think it's a total with the tolerance of variance, I think it's 0.32, but anything other than that's over that, we have to destroy it. And they come watch me destroy it.
Wow. What type of manpower do you need to do this? If you're planting 7 feet by 7 feet, it's not that much. And I imagine you'd want to keep it hush-hush too, so.
Yes, sir. It's for the small area where I'm growing, we have a small tractor with a 4-foot disc, and other than that, it's a lot of hand. And fortunately, myself and the Marines I know, we're infantry guys, and we're used to that kind of hard stuff. But all the other property, so right now, this is all cover crop. We just use his tractor and disc, and then a seeder. So all that's pretty much automated within a day.
Yes, sir.
I had a question. I was just
Yes, sir.
curious. How many kilos would you anticipate by weight? How many kilos of product would you expect?
So it's
to grow.
It's roughly, you can get about a pound every 3 plants. Of course, that depends on yield, bugs, whatever ravages it that year if we get a hurricane. But essentially, you would need about 55 pounds of flower biomass to make 1 kilo of distillate, and that's of course done off site.
So we're talking about 10 pounds, 20 pounds.
The goal is 50 because that's what I need to make at least 1 liter. Essentially, it's the market of this has collapsed drastically, and it's almost cheaper just to buy it than it is to grow it at this point. But in terms of off put, I'm essentially the veteran advocate for medical cannabis in this state. And I kind of just keep growing this as how do I make it as ecological and less inputs and better for the environment, essentially, without a lot of input. Because a lot of the companies use a lot of inputs, but it's not eco-friendly in my opinion.
Anyone else? You've had a, yes, sir.
Just to follow up on that statement, so you're practicing more sustainable farming for this product than most. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, sir. So if you look at if you go on Instagram and type in cannabis and you get pictures of bud, the stuff that's like really full and it looks like popcorn, it's this is going really off topic, but it's plant growth hormones. So it's just a lot of salts and nutrients that they use. We're trying to do this with living soil, so daikon radishes, clover to give nitrous and phosphate in there. For the flower phase, we burn off essentially any fallen timber on the property and use that ash to put it on the bottom of the plants because that gives a lot of nitrogen into the soil.
So like you're on Store Creek, is that Store Creek?
It's
St. Perry.
There's some question if it's Store Creek or St. Peter's.
But the runoff then would be the detriment to the environment is much less, if at all, right, compared to other farming.
Absolutely, and the reason why I ended up choosing, we tried planting in this 2 years ago, and it didn't. The soil, essentially oak trees, all the roots go over there, and they pull all the nutrients out. This area right here is Kiowa Gold, sandy loam soil, and it's the best. That's the best plant I've ever had was grown in there.
Thank you so very much. Oh, what?
Just want to.
Of course.
Once it becomes well known that you're growing this there, is it? Are you any concerned about security? Because people in other states that grow it in their home, they're allowed to grow.
Mm-hmm.
What is your feeling about? Are you any concerned about that?
No, I've been there for 2 years now. We've never had a problem. And I know going back to how many hemp farmers have done this, I think I was the 10th in Charleston County, but there's only 6 of us this year. I want to answer that question, sorry. But in terms of security, the biggest threat I have is deer. They love it when they're small. They love it when they're small.
Good question. Good question. Any other questions of the applicant?
Oh, and
you had one more
statement. I know there was a lot of confusion when we first did this because it was labeled a cannabis farm. And on the record, I'm not planning to or ever going to plant either medical, adult use, recreation on this property because it would not meet the criteria from the state bill that's currently in the General Assembly.
Okay. And you do fence this in, right?
It's a mix of electrical fencing and barbed wire. The deer don't like the barbed wire.
But they can jump it.
Oh, they can jump it.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you so very much for your
Thank you.
testimony. Do we?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Thank you, Ms. Workin. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Please state your name And address for the record, please, sir. Oh, and also, this is the lease that is registered.
Is this your earplug?
It's been there since we came in tonight.
Okay.
Everybody's asked about it.
My name is Pinckney Michael. I live at 8974 Peters Point Road, between my brother to the west and my sister to the east, along St. Pierre's Creek. And I just want to reemphasize a few things that Cody said. This land has been nothing but agricultural for 300 years. It's been nothing else. There are a couple of houses on it. Some of them are pretty old, but that's all it's ever been. What we're doing with this project has no effect on any trees. It doesn't impact any roads. It doesn't impact wetlands or waterways. The drainage fields are not impacted. No boundaries are impacted. We're hugely buffered. No real estate or quality of life issues are impacted. And we're nowhere near any critical lines. We have done a lot to maintain this property in its natural and agricultural state. Any labor that happens out there is either performed by Cody or by a couple of, as he says, Marines. He supports his comrades. They come out every now and again and they do, as he said, the heavy lifting. Otherwise, it's all done by him on a tractor. He devotes considerable time to veterans organizations. His lease, the actual land he leases, is not within 300 feet of anyone. It's not the whole property. He doesn't rent the whole property. He rents about 18 to 20 acres of it, with huge buffers all around. He's not within 300 feet of anybody. It's surrounded by pine and oak forests on three sides, and St. Pierre's Creek on the other, and marsh. It provides habitat for birds, all kinds of wildlife. The marsh provides shrimp, crabs, fish, all kinds of stuff. It's in a conservation easement held by the Edisto Island Open Land Trust. They have approved us doing this. We couldn't do it without them. In fact, they're who sent Cody to me in the first place. My neighbors to the east and west have no objection to it. They are my brother and sister, but I've discussed it with them, and if necessary, I'll get them to come in and say that. I've also discussed it with numerous cousins across the road. They have had no objection to it. There's one sitting right there who would testify to that. That's Chalmers Michael. In fact, no one I've spoken to on Peters Point Road, no one I've spoken to on Peters Point Road or on Edisto Island thinks this is a bad idea. They think, this is great. We have a new crop coming in. We have something we can grow here. God, it's hard to grow stuff on Edisto, and this sandy loam, boy, it'll grow it. We don't, let's see. Anyway, we've complied with every requirement the county, the feds, and the state have given us. We've done everything we know how to do. And we just want to go on farming this place. And this is a viable crop that doesn't affect anyone. You can't smoke this stuff. You may as well take a rope off your boat and put it in a pipe and try and smoke it. It doesn't do that. It's hemp. It's fiber. It's something completely different. You can't get high or excited about this no matter what you do with it. So I'm asking you, please, I mean, this is a great product and opportunity for Edisto in South Carolina to get to grow this stuff. And he's doing a great job. So thank you for your time.
All right, hold on one moment, please, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Do we have anyone that have a question? Yes, sir, Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Michael, how long has this property been in your family?
Since 17-something.
And it's been in agriculture the entire time?
Never been anything else. It won't do anything else.
Tomatoes at all back in the day?
We grew tomatoes, we grew potatoes, we grew peanuts, we grew all kinds of vegetables. The major truck farming stopped a number of years ago. We have kept those fields going and various cover crops and occasionally corn or something. Right now, they're just in cover crops.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Thank you so very much, sir, for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Now, you said you want to speak in opposition, but you had not been sworn in. So, Ms. Working, if you would.
But you swore all of us in at the beginning, but I don't mind being sworn in
okay.
again. I'm a part-time judge. I'm used to swearing people in. I swear to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. My name is Carolyn Blue, and my office address is 18 Linebach Drive, Charleston 29407. Our family has owned this land going back to 1715, before America was a country. I can answer his question. The reason that I am here today is on behalf, and I know y'all want to get home and watch basketball, and I am sorry that this is the last thing on the agenda. I represent property owners and am a property owner in 15 tracts, 025000014. And for time, I'm going to just give the last 3 digits of the other property tracts: 016, 018, 020, 037, 041, 149, 171, 172, 173, 177, 178, 179, 180. And do I hear bingo? The reason I am here, I just found out this afternoon, the road, and to give you a bit of history about this, this was all called Peters Point Plantation. And if I had had time, and that's why I have asked for this to be continued to the next meeting, I would have brought the deeds for you today, and I would have bait stamped evidence to enter. The public road ends right here. There was a lawsuit with my family and Mr. Pinckney Michael's family against Charleston County and the state of South Carolina's DOTD, because it used to be a public road, and the public road went all the way down. However, South Carolina DOT conveyed the road accidentally, and it was a 5-day trial, and it went up on appeal they took it out of the state road system, and they conveyed it to some of the property owners, but not all of the property owners. The deed, the trial ended up with the deed being reformed, and now there are 8 of us that own this private road. It is not just Mr. Pinckney Michael's private road. I am on the deed. Private road is here. To access this property, you have to go on the private road. My name is on the deed. Daisy Michael Pedrick's name is on the deed. She did not receive notice of this. I did not receive a notice of this. George Lee Michael, who is here tonight, he did find out about it at the last minute. The Flowers Family Living Trust, their name is on the deed. They were not notified. The problem is this is a private road, and we are very concerned about the growing of cannabis or hemp or whatever you want to say. We don't mind blueberries. We don't mind tomatoes. But the problem is, when you're on a private road like that, this is going to attract people. There are not gates. And everybody that goes, and this does not go all the way down. In fact, I have got, if I had time, I would have blown it up for you, but I don't have this bait stamped and a copy to give to the opposition. But if y'all want to, I will be
If you
glad.
would take it over to Ms. Working,
Okay.
please. Are you submitting that as evidence?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
And I don't know if I say opposition exhibit number 1.
That would be fine. It works.
I'm not a defendant, but okay. This is a plat, And in the pink, you will see where I've highlighted in pink all the tracks that I own an interest in and that have to be accessed off the private road.
So I'm gonna do this much. You only have 2 minutes. You use that, so I'm gonna grant you just 1 more minute,
Okay.
please.
Because this is a private road and due to litigation, I'm going to ask that you deny this based on 3.6.5, subsection 6, because, and I'm also going to enter into evidence this plat, this piece as exhibit number 2 for opposition. At the end of this private road is land on the National Historic Register and a house that was built circa 1790. The house is unoccupied right now, and we are concerned that this is going to bring a lot more traffic, particularly because of the type of crop, onto the private road. I did talk briefly to an insurance agent that insures the liability for those of us that own like 178, 179, all of this afternoon. And if this special exemption is granted, this could cause us to lose the liability insurance on the road. In addition to that, I would ask that you deny the application because based on an email to Jenny Working dated March the 1st from Cody Callerman, he notes that he has an address, and you will see it in your exhibits, from the South Carolina Department of Agriculture. The hemp application shows 8974 Peters Point Road, yet the BZA meeting shows 8932. So they've switched out addresses. His permit from the state says one address. His address for y'all on Peters Point Road for this application says another address, and he says, hey, in this to Miss Working, I can switch it out once y'all approve me. That's like my saying.
Okay, so I hate to say this, but
Address points for this property, so there's 2 address points.
okay.
there's
So
only one
I'm
tax
sorry.
ID.
Okay, for a point of clarity and fairness, your time is exhausted unless there's a board member that would like to give you an opportunity to, ask a question of you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I guess my question, you're here to oppose the applicant because of criteria 6.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it talks about vehicular traffic and pedestrian movement on adjacent roads should not be hindered or endangered. Can you expound on that?
Yes, because this is a private road. We have problems sometimes with trespassers and people visiting Edisto Island that want to come because the paved road that is the county road, is the state road, continues on to the private road. Even though we have no trespassing signs posted, there's not a locked gate because people like Mr. Michael are going in and out all the time. On some of the lots, there are locked gates, but because of this private road from here on, it's just a private road. So you've got pedestrians, you've got people such as myself and my husband. We're out there a lot, and we're just very concerned about having people come because of the safety. We're concerned about having people out there trying to access a pot field or cannabis or hemp, whatever word you want to use. And we're also concerned that it's going to lead to more people, that it can lead to destruction and damage of the historic house that was built in 1790, and that it's vulnerable to that because at this time it is not occupied.
Do you feel like a gate, if a gate were installed,
we
that would
have
solve the problem?
suggested that, but Mr. Michael and his brother were against that, and we have litigated some things peripheral to this all the way up to the state Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do you have a question, Mr. Jordan, please?
Well, if you can't smoke it, what are they going out there to get it for?
I don't know,
But
I
are you
think that
assuming
some
they-
people,
Are you assuming they will?
I think that not everybody is as educated about this as the applicant. And I think people think, oh, they're growing cannabis. You go to Zitro Farms website and he says he's in favor of legalizing pot. I think people think hemp, cannabis, pot, they think it's all synonymous. So I think it's going to bring more people out there. We were unaware until sitting here in this meeting that there had been any grown on that property, because once again, it puts us on liability with this private road. This private road is not owned by an HOA. It is at a certain point, but at that point it's not. And I've got the insurance agent telling me this afternoon, if this special exemption goes through because of the nature of the crop, our liability insurance on this road. So if I ask you to come out to visit me and a deer runs in front of you and you end up saying, you end up in Roper, and all of a sudden you're suing me, I don't have any we don't have any insurance.
Okay, so
to cover that. So that's our.
I apologize for interrupting. You made that point very clear. Mr. Jordan?
Did I hear you say people from that don't live in the area are already riding out there? On the road that's private?
We have signs that say under surveillance. We have people that don't live in the area that visit us that come down the road.
His question was, do you have strangers just randomly coming up and down that road?
And if so, what are they doing? Where are they going?
They're trying to get to the historic house that was built in 1790s, Peters Point Plantation House. And a lot of times, because it's Peters Point Road, and Peters Point Road dead ends, they think they can get to the historic house. They can't. And so, but we got enough problems with that. We don't need people thinking that they can go in the fields to get pot or cannabis or hemp.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So they've been growing hemp out there for 2 years.
And we didn't know about it till
Y'all
tonight.
didn't know about it, so does that mean that you haven't had any issues to date with the hemp farm being there?
Good point.
What it means is our liability insurance would have been canceled 2 years ago. And that's what it means.
But it hadn't
And because they didn't know about it. And I have to, with the application, I used to be assistant insurance commissioner. When I fill out the application every year, I have to put that there's no logging out there, that there are no special exemptions for ag. I have to fill that out and sign my name. I can't risk losing my law license. I can't also advise one of the other property owners to lie on an insurance application.
So how many people own this?
Eight.
Well, that brings up
Eight people own the road.
So there's an ag field on this property that's been there for 300 years, but you're saying that the insurance company would not insure a private road that already accesses a site that's previously used in agriculture.
They're fine with agriculture, but they're not fine with the exemption for hemp. Is when I talked to.
So we would need the insurance agent to actually testify, or some insurance company.
And I will be, I ask it as a hypothetical question this afternoon because we've just recently paid the premium and I didn't want to, I just said hypothetically if this, because I did not want to definitively tell her.
Okay, we're gonna do one more question.
Well, my only question is, we're looking at criteria number 6, so vehicular traffic. Road cars have been going up and down that road already, correct?
A few go up and down the road. It is all to access any of this, and that's why I really wanted her to pass around the plats so you could see. Okay, so you could see how many. See, this is on the water. This is the plantation house. This is a field in an island. We own 15 tracts, which comprises 165 acres. And it is all except the 2 that are right. It is except, and we own these 2 right here. Everything else is off this private road that our family owns. And we are just very, very concerned about this, and we're just shocked that since the road and the deed is recorded in Charleston County, that Charleston County, that's why I called Joel Evans this afternoon, that because it is a private road, which it says in the application, that the owners of the road were not we were not notified of this.
Okay.
And
Your Honor, I just want to clarify, and I want to respect your title, Your Honor.
Oh,
so
please.
The requirement for notification, it's in the statute, and it does not require that you notify each individual property owner in reference to the deed. It is I believe it's 300 to 500 yards.
I can explain if you want me to.
Oh,
so it's so we did a full 300 radius around the entire track. So it picks up. Hold on. It picks up all these. It picks up your 178 and 179. So 179 is listed under John Rutledge Michael.
My brother-in-law.
Et al. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was mailed to. It's mailed to the tax office from the whoever gets the bill. That's where our notice goes to. P.O. Box 30845 on March 17th was sent to those two properties.
Right. And
so I don't know what to tell you.
John Rutledge Michael's my brother-in-law.
He didn't get the notice, or he didn't look at it.
And so that's
where it
why those of us that are owned 4 nights, we had no notice. We found out accidentally today. And that's why I'm sort of scrambling and don't have bait stamps documents for everything. But we do feel like also, as I said, that the state permit is issued in one address, but the BZA application is in another address, which is in your packet. And we feel like that's good grounds for appeal. We also think that you can take into consideration historic things. And the fact is, like I said, there is a house that's on the National Historic Register, which is at the end of Peters Point Road.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Your
I know,
time has elapsed. I can't continue to let that go.
Can I ask? I want to ask one thing. All I want to, ma'am, you've mentioned a number of cases that have gone to the Supreme Court or Court of
Yes.
Appeals. Can you give me cites on those? Or?
Yes, George. In fact, I can give them, and the esteemed federal judge Joe Dawson, who was county attorney.
I just need the names
You
of
need
the cases.
George Lee Michael et al. Versus George Lee Michael et al. There was a partition suit.
Well, you just tell me the name.
It's George Lee Michael et al. Versus George Lee Michael et al. There are 4 cases. And I will be glad to send you the cites to them as soon as I get out of this meeting.
All right, thank you.
I'll do that. There was a partition suit. There was a road suit. Charleston County was sued over a PD, and that one went all the way up to the state Supreme Court.
If you just send them out.
I'll send them to you.
Send them to me.
Okay. And Joel Evans and Bernie Ferrer. Bernie has worked on all this for deputy counsel for many years, so Bernie is very familiar with these cases.
Thank you so very much for your
For
testimony.
your time.
No, thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in? Yes, sir. If you could please state your name and address for the record and tell us something a little bit different than what you said, we would greatly appreciate it.
And I'll keep it short, Mr. Chairman. My name is George Lee Michael. I live at 1413 Wexford Sound Drive here on James Island. Pinckney Michael is a cousin of mine, as is Chalmers Michael. And I was not notified, Pinckney, about this when you were checking with the other cousins. But to add something a little new, because I agree totally with the private road argument, the lack of liability, think of this. The biggest problem that we have as landowners, because it shows it goes beyond, if you saw that map, are trespassers. The road frontage is limited on these lots, but the marsh frontage, look at this, St. Pierre's Creek. We have people pull their boats up to our property and break into the old house there, as well as conduct other acts of vandalism. Can't keep them away. And the grower has just said that he keeps the field that he grows out of sight. Well, when word gets around, and it will get around, Edisto Island is a small community. When word gets around, big time, that there is hemp out there, talk about trespassers. You might as well open the floodgates, because they will come, boat traffic will be incredible, and they go, whether they're mischievous teenagers or whether they're criminal element, they'll be looking around what else is around that property. They do it. And this just encourages them. We don't need that. Edisto Island, some of you may remember, back in the 60s and 70s, had a reputation for being a drug trafficking center because of all the waterways and the marshes. People could come in and get out. We don't need to go back there. We really don't. That's not the future of Edisto Island. And I would suggest, too, that how do you smoke hemp? I don't know. But as the grower said, the only difference between hemp and marijuana is hemp is 0.3% below in THC. Marijuana is over. How creative are drug dealers these days? You know, whether you crumble it up and roll it up, things can be done. Fentanyl, the biggest threat today, not only in the low country, but around the entire country, is how drug dealers add fentanyl to drugs, however they're packaged.
Yeah, I am.
Or ground up, I understand. And guess what? They poison young people. They kill them.
So you got 30 more seconds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I did want to make that point. Things can be done, amazingly done, with any kind of drug. And I agree totally what Carolyn Blue has talked about. Thank you very much. I encourage you to vote against this exception.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So please hold one moment. Do we have any board member that has a question for this young man? Thank you so very much for your testimony today.
Thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Happy Easter to everyone.
Yes, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in opposition? It's just the family here in the house, seems like. All right.
Just a point of clarification. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, sir. That's fine.
Point of clarification. Did you want to ask for your continuance before?
Yes.
Okay, so you should.
Excuse me.
Yes,
She I
I
had wanted to ask for one when I first came up, and I thought the chairman did not want to entertain the motion, but I am asking that you defer this to the next meeting to vote on this, and to leave it open so I could submit documents, which I did not have time to today.
Okay. Thank you. So, sir, you have the right of rebuttal, limited to 2 minutes.
Cody Collerman, 8465 Chisholm Plantation Road, Edisto Island, South Carolina 29438. One of the things with the hemp license, the reason why my home address is on it is because the hemp license is tied to an individual, not the entity. And for the crime and stuff like that, none of the farm addresses are listed anywhere online. It's only my email address and my phone number on the state website. And the reason why they put my personal address on there is so if someone got a hold of the permit, they don't know where I'm farming. So the only time I list an address is on the planning reports, the sample reports, destruction reports, whatever, because there are farmers that have multiple different addresses that they farm on, so that's just organizational. Again, it's not tied to, because I can't live on the property. Most farmers don't live on a property that they're farming. Going to the illicit drugs and all that stuff, again, this is a bona fide agricultural product. It's federally legal. If you think it fentanyl and all that stuff. No one's ever overdosed or died from cannabis, period. It's actually a way to get off opioids and all this, that crazy stuff. At the end of the public road, there is a sign that says private road, which from my understanding, I know Mr. Michael could explain it, but it's an easement that all the landowners have on that to use that private road essentially to get to their properties. On the lease that I submitted to the Register of Deeds, it doesn't mention hemp whatsoever. It just says, I'm Cody Kellerman, I'm farming on this for this price. I'm using only the 16 to 18 tillable acres on the property, so not the whole property. And the switch comment came from, so the state doesn't care what address it is, whether it's Pinckney's home address of 8475 or the address in question, which is the 8432. All the state wanted was a lat-long geolocation of the middle of the field and the area around it. Up until about last year, if you typed in the 8432, the point on Google Maps did not match up where the farm property was, so the state wanted me to use Pinckney's address, so that way if SLED or the state wanted to come inspect, they would know how to get there, if that makes sense. Now that it's switched over, that's what that switching comment was, that I can talk to the state and say, hey, this is updated. I'll be using this address now for where I'm planting and not his personal address.
Okay.
2 minutes?
Sorry.
That's fine.
Yes, sir. One moment.
Of course.
Your time has expired. Do we have any board members that has a question? Yes, sir. You closest to me.
I had three, and you can answer them with
Go ahead,
one
sir.
answer. When do you plant? What's your timetable when you plant? When does the product bud, or when does it flower, and then when do you harvest? If I'm
So,
using the right word.
so generally you can get, if you can do March 15th, so around the same as corn, but I always go later because of frost. It starts flowering after summer solstice, so that's about mid-June roughly. You have to, so essentially the plant will just be leaves and stems, and then, you know, nature's wild, and it essentially knows when we're losing, essentially the moon's going back down to the southern hemisphere, so they automatically know when to go to flower, and then you're harvesting around August to October timeframe, or excuse me, August, September timeframe.
Okay.
So all three questions?
So somebody
Okay.
wouldn't be tempted to, except for curiosity, they wouldn't be tempted to come on the property really if they were trying to do something nefarious until August, September period of time.
I mean, it's not going to be worth anything.
I'm sorry?
It's not worth anything, because the going price of a pound right now for the biomass that you use to turn into oil that I do is roughly $50 to $100. So that's why the comment before of it's actually cheaper to buy it than it is to grow it right now, technically. When it comes to the private road, you know, we see bicyclists and stuff. They usually go down there, turn around, and start heading back the other way because they miss the house that they're going to if they're visiting.
And how about the gate? Was there an indication that
If you need to build a gate, we'll build a gate, but it's his land. I mean, I would pay for it, but the security concerns from SLED, it's all they want to know is where it's at. They don't have any other requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members have a question? Ms. Smalls?
Just a quick one, maybe this is for Mr. Michael. You said it's been agriculture all this time. You gave him a lease on the land. Did you not know that a special exemption was required?
If I'm the first hemp farmer and I'm the 10th licensed in the state, I mean, I'm kind of the trial.
First one in the state.
Well, no, I got in the third year the state had a program. I was probably the 10th Charleston hemp farmer, and it sounds like I'm the first one going through this process. So there's a lot more people that need to go through this process.
Good question, Mr.
Because we didn't know. Like we from my understanding, it was if we follow the state's guidelines, we do everything that the state and the feds want, we're fine.
And nobody thought to check with the...
Well, it's an agricultural product, man. We didn't think there was a special exemption.
I've read about this stuff. It's very regulated, and there's a lot of new laws that are just coming out, but they're all at the state and federal level. So nothing in any of the laws, and I've actually read several of them, say anything about county requirements.
Thank you, sir, for that point of clarity. Any other questions from this board? Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, board members, that closes this case to the public. Does any board member have a question of staff? Does any board member have a question of staff? Okay, so you heard all the testimony. At this point, lady and gentlemen, we need a motion to either approve or deny this case BZA 02-23-00657.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, but we also need to.
Yeah, I
for
think
the-
you have to address
the
request
appeal.
for continuance first.
Okay, so thank you for bringing that point forward. As our attorney states, we have been asked to sustain for making a vote on this application to delay or defer this case. I've also been told by staff there's no room on the docket for next month. And it would be when, if we were to defer,
June 5th.
if you were to defer this case. So that is before us first, before we make a motion to approve or deny a case.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question for Mr. Hugie. It's procedural, which is, does that mean that anyone opposed to any case before us can recommend deferral, and we have to address that first before a motion for or against?
Procedurally, yes.
So, okay.
So
That's interesting.
But generally, you all will call it not a continuance.
Right.
This is a legal term, but it's a deferral. It's the same thing.
So anyone can request it. Anyone opposed to any case can request a deferral.
Yes, including
And
the
we-
applicant.
And we have to address that.
Because the board can do it, even the
Right.
board member.
I know we can. I just didn't realize that anyone opposing an application could do that. And we have to, we are required to address that as a board.
So you all are a quasi judicial board.
Right.
So you're actually acting as judges. So
I understand
a lot
that.
Right. So a lot of the rules are, because this gets appealed to the circuit court.
Right.
So a lot of the rules and procedures are very similar to going before a judge.
Right.
So generally, a continuance or deferral would be heard by a judge or the board before a decision is rendered, because if the decision is rendered, then the other party who's requesting something from the board in this case, their procedural rights have been violated, essentially.
Okay, good. Good to know.
Thank you.
So then we need a motion to accept the request for deferral or not.
Or not.
Or not. That is correct. So, do we have a motion to defer this case?
I would make a motion not to defer this case.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been properly moved and second that we are not to defer this case. All those that agree, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? There's two to not defer. Okay, so it carries. So we do need a motion to approve or deny this application as set.
Mr. Chair, in the matter of BZA 02-23-00657, I would make a motion that we approve the request for the special exception for use as a hemp farm. In doing so, I find that it does meet all of the approval criteria, including criteria number 1, that it is consistent with recommendations contained in the Charleston County Comprehensive Plan and the character of the underlying zoning district as indicated in the zoning district description. I believe that the owner of the property who's described that the site has been used for over 300 years in agriculture, and finding a product that could continue that use is essential in determining that we're in compliance with that we're consistent with the recommendations in Zeldar. For criteria 2, that it is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity, and will not adversely affect the general welfare and character of the immediate community. The size of this particular hemp farm and the amount of traffic that's coming into and out of the property does not appear to be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property owners. And I think that the any other types of activities that could occur on this property are more speculative at best in this particular case. For criteria 3, that adequate provisions have been made for such items as setback bufferings to protect adjacent properties from possible adverse influence of the proposed use, such as noise, vibration, dust, glare, odor, traffic congestion, or similar factors. Again, as described by the applicant, there's only a handful of people that even come onto the property in any given year to help harvest the product and prep the fields for production and to maintain the facility. So I believe that we meet this criteria. For criterion 4, that where applicable will be developed in a way that will preserve and incorporate any important natural features. This particular use actually does not really touch any of the natural features other than the existing ag fields on the property. And there is support from the Edisto Island Land Trust and the Charleston County Greenbelt well, maybe not the Charleston. There's certainly support for the Edisto Island Land Trust, so we meet that criterion. For criterion 5, that it complies with all applicable rules, regulations, laws, and standards of this ordinance, including but not limited to any use conditions, zoning district standards, or site plan review requirements of this ordinance. Again, I think I would agree that what the applicant stated here, that all site plan requirements have been met and reflect on the site plan attached. Hemp farming will only take place with permitted license from the South Carolina Department of Agriculture, and the applicant has gone to great lengths to detail the extent of which they've met the state requirements for harvesting hemp at this particular location. And for criterion 6, that vehicular traffic and pedestrian movement on adjacent roads shall not be hindered or endangered. Again, the applicant does not intend to bring large equipment onto the site for their operation, so I do not believe that this will have an effect on Peters Point Road, and that movement across that property will not be hindered. In making this motion to approve, I would add the 2 conditions recommended by staff, or the 2 special conditions recommended by staff. That's my motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so it's been properly moved and second. Any question, discussion? Any discussion?
I had 3 comments where, and I hope everybody understands, I know that my fellow members of this board do, that we're constrained to comply with the law. We're not permitted to interject our personal views relative to hemp in making our decision. Second, the witnesses have done a very good job conveying their objections. And I don't think that they've been harmed by a lack of continuance. The lack of a continuance is not out of disrespect to anyone involved. It was just it was within the sound discretion of this body to not grant a continuance. And again, a very, very capable job has been done, and extra time was granted to allow a presentation to be made. And those are my statements.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other discussion, question, comment? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? There's 1. It carries. Congratulations, sir. Your application has been approved. Within 10 days, staff will be sending you information, letting you know the next steps in the process. Once again, congratulations. Thank you. And good night.
We adjourned, sir?
Yep, well, Ms. Working, do we have any other, wait a minute. Thank you for your consideration. Wait a minute. Do we have any other business before this body, Ms. Working?
So our next meeting, we have 8 cases as well. One is the old business case, the Gulf Road tree mitigation, which I stated very unlikely they'll have a survey, but after many discussions, it was best just to get a decision from the board
Okay.
to move forward with that. And then out of the 7 new business, I think there's only 2 SDRs this time. And we hope to be back in chambers in May. And you guys fine with meeting at 5? It seems so.
It's 9 o'clock now.
And then just training, everyone's doing really good. Most people already have at least half their credits or they're done. So good job.
Thank you. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all your help. This was a long one, but thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
Ross, all my CEUs transferred to this.
Thanks for listening to us.
Did you